Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so I would like to call tonight's meeting to order. Council Lajeunesse, if you could come to the, stop talking. Do we have Councillor Pearson yet online?
Not yet, no.
Okay, we do have another councillor joining us virtually today. And one that is scheduled to arrive a bit late, and Councillor St. Pierre will not be in attendance tonight. But we do have quorum, so just in light of a big agenda, let's get going here. So we will welcome those members of council when they arrive. But in the meantime, welcome everyone to our regular meeting of July the 24th. I'd like to call tonight's to order. I do wish to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the territories of the Sauk and Shaanu nations, and we're grateful of their stewardship of the lands and waters and the relationship to those that remains to this day. Council, in front of you is today's agenda. There is two requests here of variations. So first one would be approval along with that council varies section 23(2) of the council procedure bylaw to permit a third public delegation. And that is a funding request for the Sauk volunteer recruitment tour for September 23rd, 2023. And secondly, that the agenda for July 24th, 2023 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended, and that is to include the supplemental agenda items. So I'll look for a motion for that, please. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse.
No.
Question?
I'm a member of the organization that's seeking in item 1 here. So perhaps I should not be voting on that.
For the agenda. 1, 2, 3.
Councillor Pearson is online now.
Councillor Pearson is online. So we do have quorum. It's up to you if you would like to step out. Okay, so Councillor Bateman is going to step out because he is connected to the third delegation request. We do have quorum though, because thankfully Councillor Pearson has joined the meeting just in time. So with 4, we're fine. 2/3 of 4. We'll split somebody, I'm sure. Okay. Anyway, so I will call the question. All those in favor, please.
Aye.
Okay, Councillor Pearson, I can see you. Thank you. You're in favor there. Good. Thank you. In the event though, Councillor, that your video cuts out, that's totally fine. Just maybe speak up if you're not in favor, but otherwise Robert's rules or procedure, if you say nothing, you're deemed to be in favor. So just bear that in mind. It's okay if the feed is not very strong. So anyway, that's carried. So if we could have someone return Councillor Bateman to the room, please. There we go. Excellent. Okay. All good. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so first off would be our item 4 is public and statutory hearings. The first one up today is a development variance permit for PLN 01696 for 5627 Woodlands Road. And so we have our staff report. I'll hand it over to staff to take us through the report and to the request for variances, please.
Thank you, Worship. We have a development variance permit for property 5627 Woodlands Road. The following application is to vary 2 regulations of the subdivision and development standards bylaw. The applicant owner has applied to subdivide their property into 4 lots and would like to retain an existing second driveway. So as one residential lot has 2 driveways accessing Woodlands Road. This requires a variance to section 24 of schedule 3 of bylaw 404 that limits residential lot to 1 driveway per road frontage. The applicant's also requesting a variance to section 2.28A that requires the applicant to improve public road right-of-way to the standards laid out in the local suburban urban road cross section of bylaw 404 as well. Where am I clicking here? Boom. Come on. I'll just put it in the next slide. Site context and development history. The property located at 5627 Woodlands Road is approximately 1.4 hectares and has access to both Harborview Road and Woodlands Road. The property is within the Gateway Residential designation of the official community plan, and it's zoned RU5 within the zoning bylaw. These designations are applied to larger rural properties that often are not connected to sewer. The property was rezoned in September 2021 from RU4 zone to the RU5 zone, which allows the subdivision of 4 lots. The development permit is currently being reviewed by staff to allow for the 4-lot subdivision. A development permit is required because the property could further be subdivided under the current zoning into 5 lots. This is in accordance with section 7.22 of the OCP. So variance requests. So through the application to subdivide the property, the applicant has communicated to staff that they wish to retain the existing second driveway along Woodlands Road and vary section 24 of the subdivision development standards bylaw that limits a residential property to 1 driveway per road frontage. The applicant submitted rationale states that removing the existing second driveway would require them to extend 1 driveway into the property to reach a future carriage home they are planning on constructing. Staff is in support of the request under the condition that the driveway will be used to access Woodlands Road if the lot is ever subdivided in the future, and that no additional driveway accesses are constructed along Woodlands Road as a result of the property subdividing. Thanks. So the applicant has also requested to be relieved from the requirement to improve public road right-of-way to the standards of the relevant cross-section required through the subdivision and development standards bylaw 404. Both Harborview and Woodlands Road are classified as urban suburban local roads within the complete streets section map, Schedule 3 of bylaw 404. The cross-section standards for this classification include an 18-meter wide public road right-of-way, 4.25 meter travel lanes, 2.75 meter boulevard and bioswale ditch, and 2-meter sidewalks, street lighting, as well as street trees, 1 tree per every 15 meters of frontage. The applicant has requested not to pave either road, citing that portions of the road were paved. This would be a misalignment for the rest of the road. Staff's recommendation is to have the applicant pave the road to a minimum of 6 meters. The current width of Woodlands Road is approximately 5 meters within the property frontage. The width of the pavement within Harborview Road frontage varies from 4.1 meters to 5 meters at the widest point. The district fire chief noted that fire emergency responders require a minimum paved road width of 6 meters to operate their equipment effectively. The applicant has agreed to provide a trail along both Harborview Road and Woodlands Road instead of installing a sidewalk required by the cross-section standard. As Harborview Road is identified within the Transportation Master Plan as a walking and rolling route that connects Highway 14 to the Galloping Goose Trail and to the C2C Regional Park, staff would support the variance to the cross-section standard to relieve the owner from installing the sidewalk if a 2-meter trail was constructed either of gravel or asphalt and was constructed along Harborview Road as well as Woodlands. Staff making the same recommendation for the Woodlands roadway as well as Harborview. The applicant would also like to vary the requirements to install a ditch or to improve the existing ditch to meet the road cross-section standards, as it would require removal of established trees. Staff are ready to support the variance to the cross-section and not require improvements to the existing ditch if a stormwater management plan confirms that the existing ditch system is sufficient to manage the rainwater. The applicant intends to abide by the registered restricted covenant in terms of tree protection and would like council to consider varying the requirement to provide street trees along Woodlands in favor of retaining existing trees within the boulevard and providing tree protection during construction. The applicant agrees to plant trees along Harborview Road right away. Staff are in support of the applicant's intention to retain the existing trees along Woodlands Road in lieu of planting new street trees. Retained native trees will require a tree protection plan by a certified arborist or a qualified environmental professional. Staff have visited the site and determined that 1 to 2 of the trees along Harborview could be retained and the remaining 6 to 7 trees would be required. The 1 to 2 trees being retained would require the tree protection plan as well. The applicant would like to vary the requirement to put street lighting in, as currently there are no street lights in the area. Rationale provided that cites that lights could be creating unnecessary light pollution in a rural area. Staff recommendation is that there's an existing BC Hydro rental David light that exists at the intersection of Harborview and Woodlands Road. Staff would support eliminating the requirement for street lighting along the frontages of Harborview as well as Woodlands. Go next slide. So staff's recommendation to council is to vary section 24 of schedule 3 of the subdivision development standards bylaw 2014 to allow the applicant to retain the second driveway connection and that the driveway is used to facilitate access if the property owner is ever to subdivide in the future. In their recommendation to council, staff have included 2 recommendations, A and B, to account for the applicant's request not to pave the road to the 6-meter width extent. Next slide, please. So as well, staff recommend council authorize the issuance of a variance to section 2.2A that requires public road right-of-way improvements in alignment with cross sections standards for the local urban suburban road cross section taken at the time of subdivision with the following conditions applied. Staff's recommendation to council is to uphold the requirement to pave both roads to a minimum of 6-meter width. However, staff are presenting 2 recommendations, one that includes staff recommendations to pave to the 6-meter width, and the other, the applicant's request for variance not to pave the road to the 6-meter width. The following are staff's recommendation to council: that the applicant pave both Harborview and Woodlands Road to a minimum of 6 meters wide. That in lieu of the sidewalk, the applicant construct a trail along Harborview Road and Woodlands Road. Staff recommend that council reduce the number of street trees the applicant's required to plant in accordance with bylaw 404 and allow the applicant to protect and retain some of the existing trees along Harborview and Woodlands Road. And the council may wish to remove the requirements for street lighting as there is a BC Hydro David rental at the intersection of Woodlands and Harborview Road. This concludes my presentation. So the 2 recommendations in front of council for consideration tonight, they are identical recommendations, except the first one has the requirement that staff are putting forward for the applicant to pave Woodlands and Harborview Road to the minimum of 6 meters. And the second recommendation does not have that requirement to pave the road to 6 meters.
Okay, and then as you said, Mr. Carter, that's the only difference. So the rest is the same. The other 6 points are exactly the same for both.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I will look to members of council to see if you have any questions first, and then we would also like to invite the applicant up to make any comments that they would like to make, as well as members of the public, and then hopefully we can conclude and carry on. So perhaps Councillor Pearson, I'll turn to you first. Do you have any questions at this time?
Okay, I'll just test. Can you hear me now? Am I good? Can you hear that? It's really, really crappy.
We heard that too.
Okay. So, this is one of these, and I'll just make a couple of comments. The 2 driveways into the original property there, I have no issue with that. It was actually quite easy to deliver the papers to that house when I was about 12 years old, going in one driveway and coming out the other. They've been there for an eternity, those 2. I don't think it'll change the character of Woodlands Road. And I do understand we have rules sometimes that come into play after. 2 driveways, I don't have an issue with that. This is one of the problems with some of our urban roads that we've got in our system, like Woodlands and Harborview. I grew up on the corner of Woodlands and Harborview, so I'm pretty familiar with it. Very difficult to take a piece of property and then all of a sudden do the road frontage improvements, a sidewalk or a road from somewhere to nowhere. It feels counterintuitive. I don't know if there's other solutions that are in that. And thank you, Mr. Carter, for your presentation through the chair. It's hard to get used to doing this online. I like recommendation number 2, but I also like the fact that we would start building a trail along Woodlands and Harborview, because there really never has been any. And, that's the last remaining big piece of property there. Given the zoning that's there, I don't see much development ever occurring in that area. So it's difficult to sort of have pavement, up to 6 meters wide for a little section on Harborview with nothing above it and nothing below it. It'd be nice if it was a DCC road, but I mean, it's going to be a long time before we get there. Anyway, those are just comments. I agree with the 2 driveways in and out, and I really don't have a great solution for the road widening, other than, is there a way that we could do trails? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have any solution there. I have to defer to staff.
There is one of, maybe Mr. Carter can just go share a bit more about the trail and what's being intended there.
Yeah, to your worship, the trail is literally just being constructed in lieu of the sidewalk. So as opposed to doing a concrete sidewalk, the recommendation is for the applicant to do a 2-meter gravel trail, to basically retain the existing trees that are there and plant new trees in the boulevard, and where the trees are being retained, the existing ones, to make the trail work around those trees and only improve the ditch line if needed, in alignment with stormwater plan from a consultant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carter. And just to improve the audio for folks that are online, if everyone can just turn their microphone off, and then it just eliminates that additional feedback. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
So thank you. So through you to Mr. Carter. So you just mentioned a gravel path, and yet the motion states gravel or asphalt.
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, it's an option for a hard surface trail, supposed to be a sidewalk. Options there for the applicant to go gravel with it or asphalt. Seeing as the applicant is not in favor of extending the road by 1 meter of pavement, I wouldn't see the applicant choosing the additional cost to put in pavement on top of the gravel to do the trail. So they would most likely go with the trail option, which is gravel, surfaced, and permeable.
Right. Okay, good. So perhaps we need to remove asphalt from this motion, just to be absolutely clear. And
Well, we can do that when we get to actually putting a motion
yeah,
forward.
okay,
Yeah.
good. I wanted to raise that point, particularly in light of what former Councillor Dumont told us at the Maple Avenue rezoning. The value of permeable surfaces. So let's see more of those. I have a question regarding cash in lieu for frontage improvements. So in the transportation master plan, it does speak of properties undergoing rezoning, subdivision, and or development provide the frontage improvements as specified in the standard cross section for the associated road classification. We don't have a cash in lieu for frontage improvements at this point. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, we do have the option of taking cash in lieu for frontage improvements. Typically, we wouldn't do that unless the project for that road was in the 5-year horizon. Otherwise, we're taking cash in lieu for a project that may realize itself in 20 or 30 years, and the cash in lieu would be insufficient to complete the work at that time.
Wouldn't the cash in lieu go into the larger pot for sidewalk construction throughout Souk?
If cash in lieu is taken for a specific road for frontage improvement, it has to go to that specific road. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was, okay, that's good. Question, is there a directory of Souk roads and complementary classifications for each road? Now you mentioned that I looked up Woodside. I searched for it within the Woodlands, within the transportation plan. I did not find a single reference to Woodlands. So do you have a separate directory that you keep in your bottom drawer?
No, it should be in the transportation master plan.
Okay.
Classified as urban, suburban, local.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every road in Souk has its particular classification?
Has the
Yeah,
classification.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, I must read the plan a little more closely. The other question, the applicant did note that neighboring properties that had rezoned. So in answer to Councillor Pearson's comment that it will remain lightly populated, we have approved 9, potentially 10 homes in that immediate area in the last 4 years. So where was I going with that? I've lost it. I turned 67 the other day and I'm losing it. Thank you.
You're fine, Counselor Bateman. Happy belated birthday. I think on that while we have done those rezonings, they are large 1 acre lots. One is covenanted with no suites in it, I believe. And another one are like they're large lots. It's a little different than a like a denser subdivision where we're talking about like 500 square meters. Right, these are these are larger rural parcels in size.
So as ever, it's come back to me. And the question was, the applicant noted that those rezonings did not require frontage improvements or a trail. So that she will be beginning this whole trail process. Why did those earlier properties not be required to build trail in front of there?
So I'll answer that because the staff recommendation was similar to this. And council, and that's why there's staff obviously have brought forward options. We were clear when we made those determinations, though, that it's not to be precedent setting. We would deal them all case by case as they arise. The prevailing outcome, though, was that this was a rural part of Souk. And our OCP, even in the draft phase, continues to designate it as rural, as there is no wastewater services. It's different than, say, an area closer into town where we have more infill and higher density servicing transit. I mean, I guess you could walk to transit here, but this is a rural part of our community without that growth target on it. And so council determined not to proceed with those. In some cases, it was because doing so would then result in a loss of tree canopy. We'd have to clear out all the trees and pave it and then start new. And so the intent was to retain the current coverage as it was, which is similar to the rationale provided today. But the staff recommendation was to proceed with this collection. So that's why I'm answering this question, because it was a council decision to proceed this way. And I'm thinking that's why staff has provided these options, but naturally because of the guiding documents, it calls for that cross section, which is why that would likely be option A. Yeah.
My question related to the 2-meter gravel trail that could have been added further down Woodlands.
I don't remember. I think it's because of where it went. I don't remember. Councillor Beddoes?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I don't have a lot of problems with either of these options, but I do like option A and the 6 meters. That 6 meters is the minimum required by the fire department, and I think that carries some weight. This business about it sort of starting at 6 meters and ending at 5. I don't know, a lot of the roads around Souk are like that anyway. So you've got a series of goat trails. And I think somewhere along the lines, we have to start widening these roads, because even a rural road at 5 meters is not wide enough. So this is the opportunity we have when they come for subdivisions to make those changes to these streets and in the transportation master plan. And I don't think 6 meters is a great hardship when it's already 5 meters. So I would go for option A. The other stuff, the second driveway, no problem. The trail, I'm okay with the gravel trail up there. The ditch, if it takes the water storm off the way it is, that's fine too. And the street lighting is good as well. So basically, the difference between the two are the 6 meters. And I believe since the fire department needs the 6 meters, that should be our very minimum. And I think we should hold it to it. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, we're not at recommendations, though. We're still on questions. So other questions from members of council? Okay, Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Welcome. If you could, sure. Yep, just have a seat, please. And if you could turn on the microphone so we can all hear you.
Hi. I'm the applicant of 5627 Woodlands Road. I was listening to the report from staff, and there was just one thing in there. I did recommend a trail along Harbor View. I did not recommend putting in a trail along Woodlands Road. And the reason why I recommended to do this trail on Harbor View Road was I was hoping that in the future that the district and the council will see that it would be a great asset to connect the Galloping Goose to the C2C park. And it kind of made sense that that should be a trail that goes up. Woodlands Road, I don't see anyone else developing now that's doing any trails or in the future to do any kind of redevelopment along there. I'm not sure where that trail would go. If I do a trail in front of my house, yes, there'll be a trail there of 100 meters. And then what? It comes from Harbor View. There's no trail. That person is not going to develop. Their lot's only 1,900 meters squared. The people next to me directly after the 100 meters are the ones who did the 5-lot subdivision. Again, they did not put a trail in. So I'm not sure if that's really in the best interest of the neighborhood to put a trail along Woodlands Road, unless the district does plan to continue this trail all the way down the street to the Galloping Goose. Then I would be in favor of such thing. But when you put in a trail like that, it is a little complicated on the harbor, on the Woodlands side. There is a lot of large trees there that are going to be in the way that may cause an issue. And the one thing we tried to do this entire time from the beginning was kind of keep Woodlands just the way it was. We tried not to do anything that was going to change it from the way that neighborhood was. It's an established neighborhood, it has old growth trees, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember since I grew up here. Harbor View Road was a little different, as in the trees along there were all alders. They were falling down. We wiped them all out, and it does need a trail that connects there. So that was just one thing about the trails.
Right, from where the goose is up to Harbor View. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
and
sense.
yeah, and currently so no one else has given road, or everyone else has given road dedication on my stretch of Harbor View Road. We're the last property on that street that has not given road dedication. One of the reasons why I was giving road dedication was to match up with the existing neighbors, but also was to give back the actual road to the city. So Harbor View Road physically does run along my property. So if I were to say not do this, fence my property, it would be a fence right down the middle of Harbor View Road. So Harbor View Road's already been pushed over to that. So I'm offering to give it back. And it's been a long 3.5 years. But
Okay, is there anything else you would like to comment on? Like, given that there's two options regarding the paving?
yeah, I don't see really the point of paving a small section of a road just in front of my property so that when you came up, it would get wider and then go back in, just so we can now pave the road over and put a shoulder and put a new swale in and then it doesn't make a lot of sense to come up Harbor View Road and it being only 4.5 meters. And then just in front of the property that we own, it gets, on 1.5 meters wider, or whatever that works out to be, 5 feet or something. It's awkward. It should all be done at one time, really. No one else behind me or beside me on either side is going to be developing. Their lots are both under 2,000 meters squared or so. So they're not going to be redeveloping, and then we're going to be taking road improvements from them to widen the road. Neither did this happen at the property next to me on Woodlands, or the property three houses down the other side of the street, which was in recently for a variance request, which was granted because it didn't make sense to do road improvements there as well.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Collard?
No, do you have any questions?
Okay, do you have a
I'm
question?
just curious about pedestrian safety on Woodlands.
Right.
Does it feel safe there? I did talk to some of your neighbors, and they're, yeah.
It's
there's a lot
yes
more
and no.
traffic on Woodlands.
Yeah,
Like,
so
they-
the other fear of widening the road and making it this nice, place you can just rip down on your car. Enough people go fast enough as it is. I don't want a wider road along Woodlands Road where it feels like people can go faster.
particularly of the trail, or just a safer pedestrian passage.
Right, so I'm all in favor of trails. I'm the one who proposed the trail in the beginning, years ago when there was no such thing. And I would be in favor of a trail along Woodlands too, if the district is going to continue it. My fear is that it's just not going to do anything forever. I think it is likely maybe that we can connect the C2C park to the Galloping Goose. I think that the entire town would be in favor of that. I don't know if that's on the plans for Woodlands Road. So if we're not going to do it, then there's no point in putting a little trail in and widening the road so cars go faster. I'd rather keep the road the way it is and the area the same way. Maybe we'll put in speed bumps instead and slow them down. I'll be in favor of that.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. The whole neighborhood is changing. You've created this magnificent Harborview property. That is really stunning up there.
Thank you.
Which was a forested parcel at one point. So things do evolve and change.
Right.
But thank you for being patient.
Yeah.
3.5 years, you say.
Since we started, yeah.
Yeah,
The development permit request has been
Yeah.
less likely, but there's always, it just seems like through this whole process with going through the district, all our bylaws and regulations, they're very vague and they kind of target all of Sauk or different areas. This is almost living in the country. We're very rural there. And so one of the things that held up our development permit was engineering requested that we do a TIA, a traffic impact assessment. I don't know why. This was 3 months ago and I said, no, we don't want to do one. There's no point. And I contacted, and they said, no, you have to do one. So I contacted one of the head traffic engineers in Victoria and told her, and she thought it was insanity. And traffic assessments are made for something at a vehicle increase of 100 cars per hour, not 3 lots. So I just wanted to point out, the process of some of our bylaws and our regulations doesn't always direct to where it should be for certain properties. But maybe we can change that in upcoming OCP.
Maybe. Welcome to Sauk.
It's been here a long time.
Yeah. Other questions for the applicants? Okay, see none. If you don't mind turning off the microphone and having a seat, we'll welcome members of the public who would like to comment on this application. So we do have public input. It would be specific to this application, please. So when you come forward, please we just require your name, but comments must be specific to this development variance. So not the rezoning, it's the development variance and it's the items that were on the screen. So could you wait just a moment? Okay, and we'll hear from other first-time speakers. Okay, please come up as you like. Don't push each other though.
Am I on now? Yes. This is Don Brown. He's a member of the Woodlands Road group, and I live just down the street from Vince. I'm just talking to specifically the variance in support of his variance in terms of the width of the road. We need to stop looking at these standards as they are and take a look at what's on the ground. Woodlands Road is a rural road. A fire truck can go down the middle of that road without a problem with the siren on. The thing is to look at it in terms of this is what's on the plane. I don't think, quite frankly, that putting the road 6 meters wide, having a swale, then a trail will simply fit. He'll have to take down trees. There's no way he can do it. And the thing is, when we went for our variance, that was exactly the same thing. It just seems like it's deja vu. And when we went for our variance, which the council supported for, well, we were going for a 2-meter sidewalk. Could you imagine what that would look like if you had refused our variance request, what Woodlands Grove would look like? It's a beautiful treed rural road. And we need to look at things of what they are on the ground. And it's not going to be developed more. The people are there. People have been there since their birth. They're not going to be getting rid of those properties. And so I'd like to really recommend that you think of it and look at it as something to be looked at and preserved, as opposed to making it regulated to a real, what can I say, a standard that is just quite frankly not necessary for this beautiful rural area. Thank you.
Okay, other speakers, please.
Ellen Lords. Thank you, Don. You said some of the things I was going to say. Councillor Bateman mentioned about the transportation plan and Woodlands Road not being on there. But you did pass a bylaw in 2022 that included all the rural roads to put sidewalks and boulevards and trees and lamp standards. So you messed up our rural area. So I would suggest that you go back to that bylaw and check it out. There should have been a cost analysis on that bylaw. If Mr. Collard were to put in all these things, if he were to put in sidewalk, if he were to put in lights, trees, the trees that have to be watered, they have to be maintained, the sidewalks have to be maintained, the electrical bill would come to the council, not to council, come to our tax dollars. I think you better look back at this bylaw. It's really ridiculous. There's another property that's.
Can you focus on the variance request?
I'm
please?
talking, I'm talking about the variance because of the bylaw. The bylaw is related to it. So what happened on Laidlaw Ludlow, as well, there was development there, one lot, and they were required to put in sidewalks, trees, boulevard, lamp standards, on two roads, on Iam and Laidlaw. This is because of this bylaw. The bylaw has to be changed. The bylaw is wrong. It doesn't belong in our rural area. There's sidewalks going to nowhere. It's ridiculous. It really is. And people have been walking up Harborview and walking Woodlands, the few people that do, without any problems. So I would suggest that you look at this bylaw, and also when a bylaw is put in, as Mr. Huggett said, check it out and make sure what it costs us. Thank you.
Okay, other speakers on the variance, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Heather Phillips. I'm from Otter Point. I'm a neighbor for Albedo's, actually. My thing would be to make sure that the road allowance is wide enough and that the public can identify where the road allowance is. And then that the ditches don't impede people from making desire lines. In a lot of parks, the trails are where the people made them, and then they put the trail in afterwards. I think if the road allowance is wide enough, people will make their trail. They'll walk through under the trees and between the trees. So the important thing is not to impede that ability. When Mr. Beddoes talked about goat paths, Kemp Lake Road has pavement and ditch. And they told me they were going to, put gravel beside it. It's like 3 inches of gravel running into the ditch. There's no road allowance. There's no capacity to get off the road. So going forward in District of Souk, with City Council managing and planners managing, make sure the road allowances are wide enough for the proper drainage and for people to pass through. They don't need a lot of paving and anything. They just need to know which is public land and to be able to walk through with a desire line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other speakers on the variance permits? This is the only time on tonight's agenda where we can entertain public input. So if there's anyone here for this particular variance permit, this is your time. I'll just call for any first-time speakers and then you can speak after. Okay, welcome back, Mr. Collard. I'm not seeing anyone approach the microphone.
Hi. I just forgot to touch on the street trees or the street lighting. We didn't really talk about that. I have talked to quite a few people in the area. No one is in favor of street lighting. There's no street lighting anywhere along there besides at the intersections. If we put street lighting along there and along Harborview, all the properties that sit on there that look out in the basin when there's the moon, they won't see it anymore. It's just pollution not needed for a rural area. So just wanted to do that. And in closing, I am requesting that I do not do any street improvements to expand the pavement any farther than it is, and not to touch Woodlands Road and just leave it the way it is unless the district has a plan to put the trail and continue it from one end to the other. and I would be all for it. And I am proposing the trail along Harborview on my own.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much. Okay, so now I'd like to close the public input for that particular development variance, unless any last final call from anyone I can't see. Okay, just making sure I'm not missing anyone. I have a tech fail where my screen went dark. So Councillor Pearson, I'm assuming you're still there. So if you do wish to speak, you'll just need to call out a point of order because I can't see you on my screen. So hopefully you can hear me and can catch that. So I'll turn back to members of council. Staff is looking to issue this development permit. We have two options here to consider. In terms of feedback from residents, I have heard about lighting because at one point BC Hydro did put a light. I don't remember the exact area, but in this neighborhood in particular, and that eliminated the night sky. It was disruptive. And so they did end up replacing it with a dark sky cover so that it does, the light shines down and upwards. So I don't remember exactly where that was, but it did take time, but eventually that did happen. There has been some feedback about speeding on Woodlands. Unfortunately, people do speed everywhere, but I know that the RCMP is here tonight, so they can maybe plan accordingly. And that sometimes eliminates people not wanting to walk because of the speeding. It seems to be mainly perhaps visitors to the Sea to Sky or the Sea to Sea Park who then will turn down Gatewood and go down that road all the way to the highway and then exit right on the highway, and rather than coming up and making the turn at Harborview and Sooke Road. So there is a speeding, but unfortunately people are, I think almost every road in Sooke I get reports of speeding on. So it's an ongoing concern, obviously. I am comfortable with option B. I appreciate though and respect fully how our staff arrived at this. We know that one day this road would need to be upgraded, but I also think of Ella Road in Sooke, which we are looking to do some work on because the root system of the trees are collapsing under the road. The road is sinking all over the place. It's a very interesting road to drive on at the best of times. And it goes to a very a busy beach access. And so that's something, but in terms of priorities, like there's many for the district of Sooke. It's not that we don't want to do that trail and upgrade the road. It just has to fit in its place. Otter Point Road up here, I would say, is calling for trail and improvements for pedestrian safety would be ahead of this because of the volume of traffic perhaps on it. I don't know. We haven't set that priority right now in our agenda. We're focusing on charters and church and Throop and the Phillips connector. And so there's a long list of improvements that we need to do, I think, before we head back into a rural area. So I get that if you did this section, it would save us money in the future, but when we would get there, I'm not entirely sure. And in which case we probably have to look at doing a big improvement to the whole road as it is. But that's sort of where I am, but I'd like to see what other thoughts are from members of council, given that you've heard the staff report, you've heard from the applicant, you've heard from a few members of the community that reside in that area. Anyone? Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I made a statement earlier on, but since I've listened, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with option B. The right of way does not change. All it changes is there'll be 1 meter less of asphalt, but so it doesn't really change the right of way. So I would be, it's not one I'm a sword that I'm going to die on here on the 6 meters and 5 meters. So option B would be all right with me. The rest of it seems pretty straightforward to me. So I go for option B.
Okay, and just a note back to our fire chief, I do appreciate you raising that because when we did do some research or even a simulation of wildfire, the Harborview is exactly where we would expect a wildfire to come through our community. So I certainly appreciate why that request was made for accessing that. So thank you for bringing that forward. I'm going to go to Councillor. Okay, flagging Councillor Pearson. Sure. And then Bateman. Counselor Pearson, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Some real good points from the public tonight as well. And the applicant itself. I would really hate to lose the character of some of our rural roads in advance, because I think you would end up changing the scope of what Woodlands Road looks like right now, and the applicant has been pretty clear. I would really hate to see a whole bunch of trees get cut down now to build a sidewalk or widen the road on Woodlands Road. It's got a great characteristic to it now. Harborview, I'm a little concerned about the property line being on the applicant's property. For those of you who probably don't know, that the original Harborview Road was due east of where Harborview Road is now. And there used to be a gravel road there, and that's where the logging trucks used to go down. So maybe that's something else that we need to look at. But the lighting, absolutely agree that they don't need more lighting in there. They've got one at the intersection. So I would be very comfortable with option B. And I have to agree with Ellen Lewis, is that I think somewhere in our transportation master plan, we need to look at some sections of our community slightly differently, and the requirements. And I fully get it on charters, and like you just mentioned, your worship, those are the areas where we're going to start looking for those sidewalks and those connectivity. And I think that we have a long road ahead of us before we get to Woodlands Road and Harborview Road and some of those roads down in Casinos or off of River Road, Kirby Road and Dixon and things like that, where there is going to be sometime a little bit of development, but no services. So I will be voting for option B.
Thank you, Counselor Pearson. Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, I'll be going with option B as well. There are a few elements of option B that are problematic, I think. I just wanted to note on my blog earlier today, I wrote that Woodside is a lovely, leafy, stress-busting character street in Souk. Please, let's keep it that way while also improving pedestrian safety, which I think is why I was a little fixated on that trail in front of your property, sir. Does it in fact improve pedestrian safety along that road? It's a good question. If we move ahead with option B, of course, it does state as clause number 1 that Woodlands Road you'll need to build a trail that is 2 meters or wider, gravel or asphalt. So that's a consideration for us, whether we want to include that condition. It's interesting to hear from Mrs. Phillips around these desire lines and gravel that leaches into watersheds. And I noted on Hornby Island has this trail that is famously effective for allowing bikes and pedestrians to move from A to B. It's a mix of gravel, soil, and apparently really effective surfacing. So yeah, those are my comments at this point.
Okay, go ahead, Counselor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I'm favoring option B as well. And I don't see any reason to make a 6-meter paved road that in both cases, it'll be just a landlocked little section unless the entire area were to be redeveloped, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. It would be in the future, if this area does turn out to be an area that's slated for densification, I can see doing that. But at this point, it makes no sense to do that. And Woodlands Road, a trail that doesn't go anywhere, makes no sense, especially if you have to remove the trees along with that. But I do like the idea of a trail on Harborview connecting the Galloping Goose to the park above. So I'm not sure where we're going to land with the Woodlands Road trail.
Well, we'll deal with them individually as they arise. I'm just, given the range of options here, I'm just trying to get to a point where we can move something forward. So thank you for that. Okay, any other comments from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor McMath.
I just have a question. Are we moving these separately or as a block?
We'll move them separately.
Okay.
Okay, so let's begin with that. The first one is consistent under both. So that would be that council authorize the issuance of development variance permit PLN 01696 for 5627 Woodlands Road to vary to section 24 of Schedule 3 of the subdivision and development standards bylaw number 404 to allow a residential property to have a second driveway on the condition that the driveway will be used to facilitate access to Woodlands Road and no other driveways will be considered, or pardon me, will be constructed if the property was subdivided in the future. So moved by Counselor Bateman and seconded by Counselor Pearson. Would you like to comment, Counselor Bateman?
No, not really. I guess.
You don't have to, but if you do, turn on the microphone.
Yeah, this relates to the laneway requirements in the subdivision or the bylaw 404. No need for laneways out on Woodlands, but definitely a need for laneways in our town center. So let's see some one day soon, please.
Keep all those good idea, counselors, for the priority settings time. Okay, anything comment on the motion, Counselor Pearson?
No, thank you.
Okay, anything from anyone else? Okay, all those in favor then? Any opposed? None opposed, so that's carried unanimously. And then I'm going to look at the second set here. And so this here is the first part that for the Woodlands Road public road right of way, the owner will submit a detailed design drawing prior to subdivision approval that shows a trail that is 2 meters or wider gravel, we'll say, and that is designed to retain existing trees within that road frontage. So this is where there would be a trail part way on, while fronting this particular set of property. Does someone wish to move this?
I'd like to move that it be removed.
Well, you don't have to move it then. So it just like I'm reading it to see if someone was going to move it. If you don't want to move it, you don't have to. We don't have to remove it. Counselor Pearson, are you looking to move this?
No, I was looking to remove it.
Okay, well, you don't need to move to
Okay.
remove.
Yeah, I got you.
Don't need to say anything.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no one is moving that, that's, yes?
Yeah, we're on 2, right? At the Harborside.
No, I'm just reading option B in order. So I just wanted to see if there was an appetite to make that request on Woodlands Road,
Okay.
but no one's moving it, so that falls off. So I'll move to the second point then, which will be the new number 1. That for the Harbor View Road public road of way. Okay, for the public right of way, the owner will submit a detailed design drawing prior to final subdivision approval that shows a trail that is 2 meters or wider and surfaced with gravel. Yes, Ms. Temple.
Just for clarity, the preamble beforehand after the letter B also needs to be read because that's a separate variance from the one that was moved previously.
Oh, I
So it
see.
belongs with the part under
The
B.
part that was on the other page. Okay, so that, oh goodness. Okay, let's just back up the bus here.
Sorry, not on the other page, just on this page under B. That's a separate variance.
Well, that was my other page.
I
Yeah,
see.
because it's or and then it cuts off. So I went straight to this one. So that council authorized that we're just going to start this all over. My apologies, folks. That council authorized the development permit variance to section 2.2A to remove the requirement for an owner to install public road right-of-way improvements to the standards of the subdivision standards bylaw number 404 required as a condition of subdivision approval, subject to the following. So that first one is gone. Then it would be that for the Harbor View Road public road of right-of-way, the owner will submit a detailed design drawing prior to final subdivision approval that shows a trail that is 2 meters or wider and surfaced with gravel. Am I hearing an appetite for gravel over asphalt? Gravel, so gravel, period.
So
Is-
moved.
Kevin, or pardon me, Counselor Pearson has moved that, seconded by Counselor McMath. Any comments, Counselor Pearson? No?
No.
Counselor McMath? Anyone from anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
So gravel is gravel, small rocks, and then there are all sorts of other kinds of permeable surfaces that could be utilized. So we're counting on the applicant to do something creative. Yes. And set the tone for future trail development along Harborside.
Yeah, but we can leave it as gravel.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next point then would be a new number 2, that for the Harbor View Road public road right of way will submit prior to final subdivision approval a street tree planting plan that includes the owner will plant the remainder 6 to 7 trees of the required 8 street trees, and that those trees indicated to remain will be protected as per the terms outlined for tree protection within the restrictive covenant registered on the property CA 9410310. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Counselor Bateman, seconded by Counselor Beddoes. Any comments, Counselor Bateman?
Trees. More, please.
More, please, trees. Okay, anything for Counselor Beddoes? I would just make a suggestion that there's really good fire smart recommendations on types of trees that would be drought resistant, and perhaps our fire smart coordinator could provide some suggestions. You probably know this, but it's dry, so yeah. Perfect. Okay. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. That the next point, that for the Woodlands Road public road right of way, the owner will submit prior to final subdivision approval a street tree planting plan that those trees indicated to be retained will be protected as per the terms outlined for tree protection within the restricted covenant registered on the property CA 9410310. Moved by Counselor Lajeunesse, seconded by Counselor Beddoes. Any comments, Counselor Lajeunesse? Counselor Beddoes? Nope. Anything from anyone else? Nope. All in favor then? Any opposed? Nope. That's unanimous. Thank you. Next, that the owner agrees to install or modify a swale as needed within the property frontage to the standards of the local suburban cross-section of bylaw number 404, if recommended by the detailed stormwater management plan that it was required prior to final subdivision approval. Moved by Counselor Bateman, seconded by Counselor Beddoes. Question for staff. That is something then that you would be able to determine and not bring back to council. Okay, thank you. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Lastly, that as an existing BC Hydro rental Davit light exists at the intersection of Woodlands Road and Harborview Road, council may wish to eliminate the requirement for street lighting along the frontages of both or either Harborview Road and Woodlands Road. That's an interesting recommendation because I think it needs to be. So we made that council eliminate, I think the may wish to would need to come out. And then it's a bit more clear. So with that, Counselor Bateman, are you moving that? And is it seconded by Counselor McMath? Thank you. Any comments, Counselor Bateman, in the microphone?
A lot of stars up there. So yeah, let's keep looking up.
Anything else? Ms. Temple?
The wording on the screen includes both or either.
Oh, I see.
Is it both?
Both, yes. Thank you for that catch. Okay, I think that's friendly. That's sort of the intention. Anything from anyone else? Good advice to look up, actually. Anyway, just all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're done. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Collard. Good luck. And we won't see you again on this because I think that's the last time that you need to appear before council. So we wish you well with your project and your development. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Counselor Pearson, you have a raised hand. Is that a point of order or a point of privilege that you wish to raise? And he's out.
Sorry.
That was just like a residual hand? Okay, just want to check. Okay, thank you, Counselor. Thanks for being with us tonight. Okay, next up is our delegation section, of which we have 3 as permitted under our approval. So very pleased to welcome our first delegation, well, all of them, but our first one today is our quarterly update from our RCMP. We have a presentation from Kevin Shaw and Greg Wilcox. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Evening, Mayor, Council, public, staff. I'd like to thank the good turnout here to welcome Staff Sergeant Greg Wilcox. I'm sure that's why everybody's here. I joke, however, it is nice to have community here and be a part of this. Greg comes to us from Haida Gwaii, a recently detachment area renamed Dajing Geets, with a ton of experience. So very happy to have him here. He arrived last Monday, and I'll put him on the spot just for a quick introduction with the expectation there'll be plenty more time to hear from him and get to know from him in the future.
Your worship, members of council, thank you very much. I was promised I wouldn't be put on the spot, but since I am, I just like to introduce myself, Staff Sergeant Greg Wilcox. I've been a proud police officer for 16 years. I've served in a variety of different roles. I've done everything from frontline, general duty work. I've worked in major crime for a number of years, more specifically in Kelowna, where we focus on more serious crimes and everything up to homicide as well. And I've done 2 tours up north. I was the acting detachment commander in Burns Lake Detachment. I was the detachment commander in formerly Queen Charlotte Detachment on Haida Gwaii, recently renamed Dajing Geets. Yeah, I just got here last Monday. Excited to work with all of you, and we've met just a few weeks ago, Councillor, and thank you for that. It was on good terms.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
It was a scheduled meeting. So yeah, happy to be here and happy to work with everybody here.
Well, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much for choosing Souk. I hope that you're settling in well to our community and getting to know us. We will be reaching out over the next while because in September, we put in requests to meet with the Solicitor General just on some follow-up advocacy items that I'm hoping we can share with you and bring you up to speed on and look for your support as we work together. I'm sure you may already have been briefed on those, but it's just the intent is to improve policing services and to support the good work that you're doing. But we're very delighted to have you join us. So welcome.
Thank you. Well, just I know you have a big agenda, so I don't want to take too much of your time, but happy to take as much as Mayor and Council want. Just a quick HR update, a couple new returns, plus the addition of Staff Sergeant Wilcox puts us in a bit better position as we come through the second half of the summer. So we're gratefully welcoming 3 sort of additions, not new positions, but 3 people back from assorted leave to the detachment, which puts us in a bit better of a position. However, resources still remain sort of challenged and the same issues persist that we talked about during budget season. Speaking in budget season, thank you very much. I think this is the first time we've connected since then for your support through that. Letters come from staff to the Minister of Public Safety for the first 2 positions effective 2024. As soon as we receive that letter back from the province, we can start staffing actions toward that, and we anxiously await that hopefully soon, but it hasn't been received yet. The plan will be to have someone in place, 2 people in place as quickly as we can, January 1st, 2024, but we are just playing the waiting game at this point in time with that. That'll start our transition, plus or minus a little bit to 24-hour service for the community, which is something that I think we all aspire to and look forward to. So eagerly awaiting that, and Staff Sergeant Wilcox is up to speed and completely on board with the path we sort of set in motion here. I apologize for the late delivery of this report on crime statistics. We're sort of just playing catch up in a lot of areas. So the stats before your January to March of 2023, the ones ending into June just weren't quite ready for me to have a look at it and get to this point. Lots of numbers there. I drew some highlights in the reporting. Assaults and assault with weapons, which we sort of will look at through a similar lens, are up fairly significantly. Some are a bit explainable through isolated incidents, but definitely a trend that we're watching on two fronts. One, youth gatherings, and I don't want to shine a spotlight on any area, but there's been talk in the community, and we've noticed a trend in youth gatherings that have resulted in some conflict. As well as a few, and I don't want to be alarmist about this, and I don't think it's an alarming number at this point, but some random stranger things that have little sort of logic behind them, attacks, assaults, things like that. So just some things that we're taking a pulse on at this point in time, eager to compare them to the last quarter statistics. As a result, we've shifted our proactive attention to prioritize sort of places where folks are gathering, and maybe the downtown core were some of the more high percentage opportunity of strangers to come into contact, bus stops, things like that, parks, beach areas. It's summer. We see some shifts sometimes in that. So eager to compare against the last quarter, but something that we're certainly taking a pulse on at this point in time. Some other decreases in crime, notably decreases in property crime, a slight increase in shoplifting specifically, but a decrease overall in property crime. And I think those two things for me, as I was going through this last week, sort of highlight a bit of a shift in our performance priorities for this year, which I'll talk a little bit afterwards. But it was this council's recommendation to include violent crime in our efforts to prevent and reduce property crime and offenses. And I think perhaps we're seeing some positives in the reduction of property crime, which we talked about again earlier this year. But with the increase in violent crime, potentially, we won't analyze it over a quarter, but a good priority and a bit ahead of your time coming into this to identify that as something we can work on. So we're strategizing around that, and the team's fully on board. Any questions? I'll just pause. Any questions on the crime statistics? I know I gave them a bit last minute. It wasn't strategic, I promise. Okay. And then just we finalized our performance priorities, and thank you for your time and your input on that as we built them. Much the same with some modifications this year to enhance road safety on Woodlands, I hear, for the focus on impaired, aggressive, and distracted driving. One thing we're going to try and do this year is we do have a presence, and with the opening of the new 4 lanes, that's much talked about in the community. There's been a pretty significant traffic enforcement presence there. Love it or hate it. That's been by and large the integrated road safety unit. And one thing we're going to try and do this year is work a system out with them to track their enforcement, education, efforts in our community as well, to give council and community a more true, accurate reflection of the traffic work that's being done. At this point in time, we're only collecting and reporting our detachment efforts, but given that it's an integrated road safety unit serving our community, I'd like to try and start including those stats as well. Crime reduction, touched on that briefly, to prevent and reduce property and drug crime. And this year we've added violent crime as well. It appears a timely initiative and something that we're focusing on currently. And then a continued effort on communication and visibility. Another thing we heard from this council as well, participation in community events, connection with community committees and things like that. We do track that. It's always a big number, and we're pretty proud of the work that we're able to do. Some highlights this year, I think they're identified by Mayor Tate. Participation and presence at Sukarama, some of the soup markets, a presence at Canada Day, and we were happy to be able to deliver 2 DARE classes in the elementary schools this year as well. Despite resource constraints, we made that a priority, and we're able to finish that as well. Some inward facing priorities remain employee wellness and respect, our contributions to our employee wellness, which is something that Greg and I will lead and continue to lead and feel strongly about, so that they can go out and do the work in the community that we expect them to do and the community expects them to do, as well as a focus this year, a continued focus this year for the RCMP on reconciliation and building and maintaining relationships with our Indigenous communities and partners and community members. I think that's all I had prepared for you. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing in the acting role. Similar to our interim CAO, when you're acting, you still also have all your other responsibilities to do. And then it's just busy all around. And so, you know, while we welcome our new staff sergeant, I also want to thank you for your added service, your timeliness to participate in meetings, to attend various events. And we really thank you for your contributions and just for answering the calls that we have as different as we're growing and the growing pains and adjusting to all of that. So it's incredibly helpful and you've been a tremendous resource. So thank you very much for that. On the note of community engagement, I was at the Pride events at the schools when all the schools gathered. I know some of the members were there as well. And the students were just delighted to see you there with high fives and all of that. And I think it's important for young people to see you like doing your work and engaging. And there's as you know, there's a worker shortage, so you need to speak and then say there's great opportunities, whether you want to serve in municipal hall as a mayor or in planning or engineering or policing. There's plenty of opportunities to strive for in our community, and just lighting that path for young people is really important. So thank you for that work and to those members that come out. Councillor Bateman, I believe you had a question.
Well, sure. So high five to Sergeant Shaw in that he has managed the remarkable feat of moving us towards 24/7 policing here in Souk within 3 years. So that was quite a project to tackle, and thanks for bringing it forward. I'm curious. Welcome, Staff Sergeant Wilcox. Do you get an opportunity to choose your next assignment? Did you choose Souk for a reason?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Bateman. So me coming here was my choice. I voluntarily came here. I wanted to come here. I was up in Haida Gwaii for 4 years. It was a wonderful place to live and raise a family, but I want to continue doing that. So I came down here, and I'm thrilled to be here. I was telling the members at the detachment, I felt like I won the lottery by coming here. So, and I really do mean that. But I look forward to working with everyone. It's an interesting dynamic here, because you have a community that's growing so much. And just as you mentioned, Your Worship, there's whenever there's a community that's growing, there is that growing pains, but there's also a lot of opportunity there as well. And I look forward to working with everybody and working with members of the detachment to seize that opportunity a little bit. But yeah, we are thrilled to be here. Absolutely.
Okay, so since you're new here, I must reiterate this constant request for speed enforcement. I just keep hearing from it: Grant Road West, Whippenspit, Sun River Way, and other. So these are areas that the occasional speed trap is welcome, or speed reader. What's your thought on speed reading boards? Are they effective? Do they work? Do they save you manpower or woman power?
I think in the past, they've certainly shown their effectiveness. There's a number of different environmental things that you can do to reduce speed. There's certainly something like that. There's reduced maximum velocity speeds on a given road. There's speed bumps. There's the road. I'm going to use the term improperly, but the graders where they are the bumps or the where they put divots in the road, and it makes quite a bit of noise. So there's additional signage, there's a painting on the road and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different ways that it can be done. Perhaps we can discuss it more, but certainly speed enforcement is one of them. And I certainly heard it today. So.
With one more, and that is, as you may know, the West Shore RCMP just received funding to introduce the CAR program, right, which is the Mobile Integrated Crisis Response Teams. And these pair RCMP officers with mental health caseworkers, right? So I'm just curious. I note in your stats you had 196 Mental Health Act calls last year. In the West Shore, they had 1,600 of them. So is it realistic to expect a CAR program here in Souk, or is it something we can advocate for, or do we just need to be patient, or is it just unlikely?
Throwing hardballs at him on his first day here. I think what the West Shore is doing, Victoria's done a similar program. It's progressive and it's needed. It's a trajectory that I would encourage all communities to be on based on what we're seeing. Time and time again, we see the mental health numbers are up, either remaining elevated or above what they were the last quarterly report. It comes down to, and I mean, West Shore's done a tremendous job of evolving with their community, growing at, a rapid pace. They sort of were the leaders in that growth on outside of the downtown, but it comes down to resourcing and financing, and yeah, it's something to aspire to. But as we look at our priorities for our community, it's not to put that below anything else. But once we get to 24 hours, like we talked about during budget time, as we build beyond that and we look at where the community's priorities are to allocate those resources, it's definitely in the mix. But we also hear things like, we talked a bit about our need to develop capacity in major crime investigations. We talk about dedicated traffic enforcement positions. We talk about community and school liaison, and mental health, I think, is, to Councillor Bateman's point, an important part of that conversation moving forward. Just to touch on your traffic question as well, and we did talk about volunteerism the last few times we were together. And as promised, I did prioritize the reinvigoration of our Speedwatch program. And we have a number of people just going through a refined criminal record process through that. Some of the requirements have changed in and around COVID when we lost that program. So it is in the works again, and we do have members dedicated to reinvigorating that and getting people back out with, that would include speed reader boards as well. And those areas remain well on our radar for sure.
The Souk is on notice. Yeah, thank you.
Other
Not to be a spoil sport.
all good. Don't speak. Other questions or comments from members of council? Go ahead. Yes? Okay. Okay, I guess just one takeaway, as just to think about is space. It's all fine to add all of these things, but you're still in the same building that you always were. So I think that'll be another conversation just to have, is what does that look like, and how many more humans can you fit in there realistically, and what do we need to do to work together to make sure that the space is working too? I'm sure you know that as well.
It's an important point, and something that we've talked about in Staff Sergeant Wilcox's first week for sure. And I think definitely warrants some more conversation and preliminary planning as we move forward. Yeah. Sounds good. On a personal note, I just would like to thank you, your worship, council, certainly staff who've worked very closely with me during this interim time, and as well as the community for everybody's support through this. This has been a pretty steep learning curve for me. And if not for these relationships and the support of everybody here, I'm not sure we would have collectively been as successful as we have been. So a sincere thank you. I'm not going far, so if there's anything you need, I'm still down the road, but you're in really good hands moving forward. But thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you very much. Ms. Temple, yes. Oh, Councillor Pearson has his hand up. Sorry, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Wilcox, or to Staff Sergeant Wilcox, welcome to Souk. A great big thank you to you, Kevin Shaw, from helping us through the budgeting process and talking about the human side of policing and the quality of life and retention of police officers, which helped us in our budget deliberation. Those 3 hours of being on call, the way that you articulated that for us, it made it a really super easy decision to go ahead, because sometimes it's painful, asking for tax increases. But in this particular case, it was extremely easy because it was the right thing to do for a number of reasons. And you brought that human side to policing in the middle of the night, people going home and carrying their pagers. So I know I've told you that on a personal note a few times, how much I appreciated that. Well done. And thank you for your service in Souk while you were here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And of course, you're welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting, get to know some of our other concerns, make yourself comfortable anywhere you like, but
a lot of calls waiting.
yeah, I figured there would be, so that's fine.
Go do some traffic enforcement.
Okay.
Take that learner sticker off the back.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. Okay, our second delegation today is the May 2nd, 2023 fire feedback. And so we have a presentation from Elizabeth Ashworth and sorry, I need my glasses, and Cynthia Chesky, sorry. And this is on behalf of the residents of Noblewood Place and Steeplechase. So thank you very much for being here because that was a certainly difficult night for you.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Tate, council members, district staff, ladies and gentlemen. We are Dr. Liz Ashworth and Dr. Cynthia Chesky, and we live on Noblewood Place in Souk. We represent 26 residents of Noblewood Place in Steeplechase and are here to talk about the May 2nd fire at 6700 Steeplechase. We request the district review of the fire, the full fire report, and a special meeting to discuss the feedback provided to you in the written background materials. We would like to thank our first responders for their quick and thorough response to the fire, including hosing down homes to prevent further damage. We were very lucky that there was neither wind nor drought to spread the damage throughout our neighborhood. The district's fire update on May 11th stated, quote, "There were no injuries." We are here tonight because there were injuries of another kind. Many residents, including those whose homes were not damaged, were hurt personally and financially and have communication and safety concerns related to the fire. Detailed examples of these other injuries can be found on pages 1 to 3 in the background materials. Before the fire, many of us were anxious, frustrated, and angry about the state of the Steeplechase construction site and building practices that seemed unprofessional. Several members of our neighborhood group sent their concerns about the site to the district and WorkSafe BC long before May 2nd. Those feelings were heightened dramatically by the fire and by construction resuming the following morning. Home insurance coverage, although helpful, did not reduce those feelings. Nearly 3 months on, we are unaware of measures being taken to prevent a fire from happening again. We understand that some fall under the purview of WorkSafe BC, but some fall under the district. We are aware that 2 district staff members went door to door on May 3rd to speak with residents affected by the fire. 3 households from our group list were visited, but only 1 received a business card. On pages 4 and 5 in the background materials, you will read that district staff were in contact with the site owner, were conducting a review, and issued a news update that the fire was, quote, accidental. No further communication about the fire was shared with our group list or the public. Perhaps these are your protocols, but you must consider the consequences of lack of information. This minimal communication led to rumors and assumptions to fill the information void. We want you to have our feedback about the fire so that the communication practices can be improved for us and for other neighborhoods in Souk.
Imagine you are sitting on the couch after a long day of work and having just put your babies to bed, you hear loud sirens. You look out your window and see red smoke and people running. You step outside and feel extreme heat. You hear windows cracking. You pack up, you knock on doors to ensure your neighbors are aware. Some are answering and some are not. You pack up essentials and pile your family and dog in the car. There is one road out and it is blocked. Fire trucks are forced to park a great distance away, effectively blocking the road access out. There are too many road parked vehicles and looky-loos. You back up and attempt to find the farthest point from the fire. You watch and wait, unsure if the fire will spread. You are thinking about your photo albums, heirlooms, and your safe haven possibly burning down. I am an ATLS trained trauma physician practicing obstetrics and gynecology. I have unfortunately assisted with burn victims and inhalational injuries. I have saved lives and I have unfortunately lost lives. I know what to do in situations many of you would never dream of. I believe, though, that there is continued trauma. The American Psychological Association indicates, quote, residential fires can lead to significant emotional distress in addition to possible physical injuries. They discuss how the home is your place of security, comfort, and safety, and how after a fire, the sense of security can also be lost and can significantly disrupt the normality of daily life. Imagine being a child sleeping in bed while your windows start imploding. According to research, children and adolescents can react in a variety of ways when dealing with a fire, including experiencing anxiety, nightmares, and sleep disorders. It has been nearly 3 months and little in our neighborhood has changed. The fire remnants remain, the same builders continue. The roads are overcrowded. Fire hydrant access is often blocked by residential cars. What should be a 2-lane road is quite honestly 1. Psychological effects, including post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, continue. We attempt to remain resilient and maintain a sense of normality in our homes. Unplanned financial costs are incurred to remedy significant damage. Some are unable to sell due to effects on property values or neighborhood aesthetics. I would argue that many may not be adapting well. Very little community support exists nor has been offered. Well, we are lucky no one was severely hurt or died. This could have been your neighborhood. I am thankful to our first responders who safely and effectively controlled this fire, one that could have ended with more extensive tragedy, but we deserve action and at very least answers. Access to the district review, the full fire report, and answers to our questions would go a long way towards deeper understanding and perhaps closure after such a traumatic event. On behalf of the residents of Noblewood Place and Steeplechase, we thank you for your time.
Well, we thank you very much for attending tonight. That was a terrible, I saw it from my home as well and have friends in that neighborhood. And so while I wasn't in close proximity, obviously, as to all of you living there, it's devastating. And you think automatically of children, because I know it's a family filled neighborhood for sure. So I'm grateful that you're bringing this to our attention. It's while we've had fires in our community, I'm not aware of one in my time of this significance. There's this shed fire, or there's been mulligans down the road at empty buildings and the like, but not right in a busy place. And for many where I live, people were sort of commenting, that's not the sun that's setting there. It's in the wrong place. Like, what is happening? So it's felt everywhere. And although it's unimaginable what you and your neighbors have gone through because of the intensity of being in that situation. At this point, I know that my understanding is our fire chief had requested that a demo permit be done so that at least the debris that's on site can be done. So maybe is staff able to provide some clarity tonight? And then in terms of a follow-up meeting, I think, rather than answer all of these, I know that you're here now, but it may be something then that we can take away and then plan better for to provide the materials, whether it's and what that might need, because closure, I think, is something important for us to give to you. Can we, is there some pieces we can share now?
Through the chair, I can speak to some of the things. I can't speak to everything, but first of all, thanks for coming in and I appreciate your concerns. Obviously, it was a traumatic event for the neighborhood, and it was, since I've been here, it's the largest fire that I've seen in this district. So it was challenging. You brought up some valid points about the ladder not being able to access the site due to congestion. Those things, unfortunately, are hard for us to control. Our automatic response would be a police, fire, and ambulance response. Police were on scene fairly early and started to perform some form of an evacuation. Having said that, our ladder truck wasn't able to access the site due to the traffic and the people that are just interested in coming out and watching, unfortunately, and those things are out of my control. The fire itself, we spent some time with the Office of the Fire Commissioner. We did our investigation. We interviewed as many people as we could. We witnessed videos. We saw all kinds of pictures. At the end of the day, we're pretty sure that it's not a suspicious fire. I can tell you that. Having said that, we're convinced it was accidental just based on the information we gathered and the pictures and the video we watched. So we did our investigation internally. We reached out to the Office of the Fire Commissioner, who have similar expertise. Maybe they're a little bit more, well-read in those things. They came, they interviewed some folks as well, saw the pictures and videos, and their conclusion was no different than ours. So we're pretty confident in saying it was accidental. I can't speak to what the builders did or didn't do. I know there's a requirement for hot works and a requirement to be there on site after the work is completed for a certain amount of time. Based on conversation and interviews with those folks, I'm led to believe that they abided by those terms. I can't prove otherwise. I can't prove otherwise, okay? That's all I'm saying. So the reality is here we are after the fact now, and I'm glad you're here communicating your concerns. So what we're gonna do is learn from this and hopefully get better at what everybody's doing. I made a call to WorkSafe BC the day after the fire, and I voiced all of your concerns. That's as far as it goes for me. I can't do anything more than that. We had great conversation with the fire commissioner's office, and we've identified some things that we're going to continue to implement and do better as an organization. Having said that, I don't have any more answers for you. You're welcome to get the Freedom of Information request and look at our reports. Everything's there. Everything I'm saying will be stated in those documents. What else do I have here? You know, the challenge with investigations in this regard, like I said at the onset, we're not thinking this was suspicious at all. So how much time and energy do we put into this situation in regards to an investigation? Like there was so much damage and so much heat that there wasn't much evidence left to sift through. So, you know, we don't have the resources to commit to days and days and days of continued investigation, really, that wasn't necessary based on the information we've gathered. That's really all I have to say. You know, I did reach out to the builder, the developer, the day after the fire. We voiced our concerns about getting that site cleared up. I've driven by numerous times and I've saw the same thing you folks have. I reached out to our bylaw department to file a complaint. It's an unsightly property. So we move things forward. We've got the demolition permit and we've notified the developer that he needs to get this stuff taken care of. So I think as of Thursday or Friday of last week, those permits have been put in place and something will happen. I think at this time, I don't really have any more to add to that. You know, I'm happy to answer questions, but that's all I really have at this point.
I got it. Did you know they were doing torch on a roof right behind the forest fire started?
I personally did not know that, but after the fact, obviously I did when we did information gathering.
Okay, I think I'm going to try to find a way to make this helpful. And I'm sort of looking at staff and council. Like I understand that some residents have questions that they want to have answers to. So what is the best mechanism to do that? Do you like in the public question and comment period, or is it the case where can we set up a meeting? Set up a different meeting with the fire chief and invite some residents to, or some on behalf of, or, you know, would you like to, are you able to list questions and then we can maybe get those insured? Because I don't want to schedule a meeting, then we don't have the answers and then you're all here and we can't answer the questions. So I'm just trying to make use of everyone's time. Yes, please.
I was just going to say, in the effort of time, I think it would be valuable to have residents have an opportunity with a deadline of when questions should be submitted, and we can categorize them according to different concerns and direct them to the appropriate groups. We can pass them on to you and you can pass them on to the appropriate individuals to answer those questions, and maybe perhaps have a special meeting where we have the opportunity to hear those questions answered and have a little bit of a open dialogue to gain further insight into each of those questions if needed.
Okay, so as you're both here speaking on behalf, so then is it fair to make an assumption like you have everyone's contact information? You're able to do that, like to reach out and say, okay, you know, we can do this. Maybe if everyone could, you know, summarize things like in the space of a week or something, and then you could send them to myself and to our corporate staff, and then we can kind of go from there. Yes, please.
Yes, certainly. You have my contact information based on the request for us to be here tonight. And I think what would be helpful too is if we could please have that copy of the fire report ahead of a meeting, and perhaps the district review, so we can at least glean what we need from that. That might answer some of our questions, but there were also several questions that were sent to you in the written background materials that had to do with especially the responses from the district. So that would be really appreciative if we could have a special meeting where we can really dive into this.
Okay, so I know our staff have that because anything that comes forward publicly, they'll redact personal information to protect your privacy, but obviously internally that is held. Ms. Temple? I know that's where I'm going.
I was just going to add that, yeah, like I read all the background information. It's kind of hard to tell which questions, some of them are kind of answered maybe in further commentary. So if we can get a more detailed list of which specific questions you guys have that you think the district are going to be able to answer, because there's going to be some that will be out of our control to answer when it comes to WCB. Insurance premiums, I would assume most people's insurance companies know the process to go after somebody else if they think the deductible can be reimbursed by the party that was found at fault in the situation. So yeah, if we can get a summarized list of questions submitted and a formal request for the fire report, we can definitely provide that information. I guess it would be up to council as far as a special meeting with council goes, or if this is more of, if they would like to have a meeting with staff kind of later on, once all this information's been able to been gathered, where staff would be happy to consolidate that and have a meeting with the residents and provide them an update. Or if this is something council would like to have a meeting for, when you say special meeting, I guess that's what I'm trying to confirm. Are you talking a special meeting in August, or are you just would be referencing a meeting, a report coming forward later on this year with further information on the specific?
I'm wondering if you're comfortable perhaps starting with a meeting, like, as we work through those pieces, put the request in and that, and then just to see if the questions are answered or what's outstanding, is maybe to look, firstly, it's starting to see if a meeting can be arranged with our fire chief and some staff. I just say that because in August, it's going to be a challenge for us to have quorum, to have a meeting. And so, and also, like, is it the case that do you want to appear publicly with webcasting and everything, or in that setting, or maybe a lot of it can be alleviated like here, maybe in this room, or, because I'm just thinking of meeting room size, but maybe staff then can answer it more freely as things emerge that way, because we're in a council meeting. So there's a formal process I need to follow. So even like, I can't just get you to speak. You'd have to wait till you give 2 minutes. It's very time restrictive. You need to speak on the item. So it may be better to have a more informal setting than a formal council setting. And there also may be some folks that may not feel comfortable sitting on with the webcast and all this stuff rolling, right? It may just be more it may work better. And then if that doesn't work, then of course we can look to find a meeting time, but then we're all here and this is the environment, right? So just given the sensitivity and what you're all going through, I just don't want to put you through the camera and all the formality of this meeting. So Councillor Bateman.
So to follow, yeah, good idea. I think that might be a best process. Dr. Ashworth, you did request a copy. I wonder if of the report or any, I guess there are no public reports. So you mentioned FOI, but could we expedite a quick release of that document so that questions will be answered?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that I could reach out to Dr. Ashworth tomorrow. We have released the report to 5 different insurance companies who've requested it through the formal FOI process for people in the neighborhood. So I have it readily available and I can provide it quite quickly. And I do have your contact information for your delegation, so I can reach out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, does that work for you? Yeah.
Yes, and I also have the contact information of all the residents that we're representing tonight, so I can forward anything to them.
Okay, because I'm also just mindful that like with our scheduling, it's in the evening, you have children, then you need a baby, like it's just all of that, right? So that just can create more work. I'm trying to like take things off of you and not add to them. So why don't we try that, and then we'll coordinate something and I'll look to be available for it. Obviously you need more of the expertise, but I'll be there just to provide the lay human support, whatever that can look like. I see Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is through our fire chief. There's one little thing in here that really got me thinking, and that's when the person phoned 911, the fire dispatcher said to call Souk Fire Department directly. So I would like, is that that doesn't sound normal to me. That sounds very strange. So this is through the chair to the chief. Have you looked into that?
I'll take it, actually.
Because actually, I think let's have the fire chief answer first, because that's where the council wants, and I'll go to you, Councillor McMath. I know that you're an expert too, though.
Yeah, to the chair. So Deputy Chief Kennedy did look into it and we didn't really get a solid explanation. There was a mix up from a dispatch point of view. And I can't speak to any more than that at this point. Sounds very odd and it's not normal protocol, but I'm led to believe Councillor McMath might be able to shed some light on that based on her work in a dispatch center. So if that's okay.
So for the benefit of the public that are here, Councillor McMath works with Saanich Fire and is, you know, in her other life. So in your spare time, right, Councillor?
Yes, I did police dispatch, Victoria Fire, and now I'm at Saanich where we do 18 departments, including Sooks. So I've spoken with a constituent about that exact issue. I have never heard of that in my life. So what we're going to do is we'll have a request sent to the chief, who will then forward that to the dispatch center. How the call is described, it's the first person that you connect with. So when you call 911, you reach what's called a queue agent, and they're typically 95% are based in Vancouver on the mainland. And that's the person that asks you the question, do you need police, fire, ambulance, for what location? So from the description from the constituent, it sounds like at that juncture, which is prior to getting to dispatch, there was a very bizarre recommendation made. Yeah, fortunately on this evening, there were multiple callers, but the concern around that is that if you have a single caller, the risks. So we'll have a request sent to the chief, who will forward that to Assistant Chief Thompson, who will then put in a request to get the audio tapes of that, which then we can share publicly. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McMath.
Yeah, thank you for the response from the counselor and the fire.
Okay. So I hope that that helps somewhat a little bit, and just to clarify sort of what our next steps are. So Dr. Ashworth and Ms. Temple will be connecting over the report and just sending that out, and that might help new questions or answer some, and then we'll look for a date that will work for everybody as best as we can. And these other pieces are still happening too.
The other pieces as in the district review.
I'm sorry?
The district review that was promised by one of the district staff, saying that there was a review being in contact with the owner and reviewing the fire and the causes and the, I believe it's on page 5, or sorry, page 4.
Thank you. The person responding, hi, I'm Christina. So I'm on the other side of the email, and a neighborhood resident as well as a staff member. So I can certainly elaborate a bit more on that in a fulsome response. Chief spoke to some of the details of the review. It's an ongoing process with any incident, but we can provide more information in the follow-up meeting as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just wanted, you know, thank you very much for this presentation, giving these insights into, as you said, very traumatic, scary, out of the blue. There it was. The one thing that really struck me was the discussion of parking along Steeplechase. And, you know, it's famously a bit of a poster child for bad parking planning in Souk. I know it's come up at the Land Use and Development Committee meetings. So I'm curious, through you to Mr. Carter, are there ways to remediate situations like this?
Through your worship, Councillor Bateman, there's options to look at doing one-way travel traffic through certain areas of the neighborhood. I've actually conducted a partial study on it so far, and there might be something coming forward to council in early 2024 regarding this area.
I guess other pieces, is there about like where hydrants are, like, is there a way to red line? Are they painted in red right now? I don't remember. So like sometimes there's ways of improvements to signage. parking on one side of the road only. So I think those are some of the feedback pieces that we could have in this meeting is, you know, and that might help, like if there's parking on one side or the other. I know then those vehicles have to be parked sometimes, and I know I'm guilty of it too. It's because the garage is filled up with stuff. So maybe a neighborhood yard sale, clean some stuff out, put the cars back. I don't know. Like, it's just the conversation piece that obviously this is very real. And then where can we identify, like, these are the no, like signage. We've had to do that in other areas, like start with the paint, then and add more signs. And then it comes down to an enforcement piece and towing and all those things where it gets congested. And then look for where others can then park. If you can't park there, where do you park? And figuring that out. That's a piece that all residents kind of have to take into account for themselves. Like if you have a suite, where are you going to provide that parking? How do you control that? And really, it should be contained on your property. I know that's not always easy, but where does it go? And then where do you have your visitors park to not restrict these things? So it's ongoing conversations. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to add that I've probably been speaking to both of them over the last year since I moved to Souk, because I've had some near misses with my children walking on the roads. And I also feel like I crawl down the roads when I'm driving, and I've almost hit people as well that just dart out, children and whatnot. And it's usually because you're doing the zigzag down the road. Short of me calling bylaw all the time, which is kind of the response I get for people parking right up to the corners or right up to the crosswalks, or even the way the road in front of 6700 Steeplechase has a little cutout for parking and then a sign. You physically cannot see the sign that's there to tell you that there's a crosswalk there. So it's some of the planning department over time and the actual engineering and construction of the neighborhood. And I think this isn't only a Steeplechase and Noblewood concern. This is actually the whole master plan of that community that needs to be reevaluated, and whether it's one way or whatnot. Majority of the information I received was simply that there's been a lot of, I think, unapproved improvements to their own parking for those suites and whatnot because of the suites that are necessary to maintain a mortgage and whatnot. And that's kind of been the response I've gotten. And so I think that it would be important from a safety perspective, because you've touched on that quite a few times tonight, you know, and from just a ability to manage the road, and then that ties directly into the fire and the ability for first responders to adequately access neighborhoods safely.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here tonight. And we'll be in touch soon anyway. Okay, thank you. Council, it's 8:47. So just as did you want to take a recess? I'm not sure if the residents wanted to stay or if you're departing. Okay, there's just a call. There's a few well, and that's why I'm just trying to look at, we have another delegation. And then we move into public, we have the report, and then we move into public Q&A. So this might be a good time for a recess. Okay, so council is going to recess the meeting. It's 8:48 until 9:58. Pardon me, 8:58. 10 minutes, not an hour and 10 minutes. Sorry, 8:58. Okay, everyone. Thank you. If you could please have a seat so we can continue the meeting. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, everyone. So I was just reminded that we have 2 remaining public delegations. The next one is 5.3, preventing increases to property taxes. And we have our speaker here, Chris Zmuda. Was Mr. Zmuda here earlier? Okay, I'm not sure.
I can run downstairs and see if he's outside, but do you want to?
Sure, we'll go to the next delegation if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the next one then, which will be the funding request from the Souk Volunteer Recruitment Tour.
So I'll excuse myself as a member of the Souk Multi-Belief Initiative.
Okay, so Councillor Bateman is recusing himself. He's declared a conflict and we have 4 remaining and Councillor Pearson is still online, I believe. And gentlemen,
Yes.
welcome. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Your worship and councillors and city staff. My name is Rick Eby and Koshin Moonfist. We thank you for allowing us to speak to you tonight. One of the distinguishing features of Souk is its vibrant volunteer culture. And as we all know, every service organization is constantly looking for new volunteers. And many residents are also eager to find a place where they can make a difference in our town. And so the Souk Multi-Belief Initiative is collaborating with Searchin, the Souk Region Community Health Network, to create an opportunity on Saturday, September 23rd. The plan would be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Those service organizations that would want to participate, they would have several staff on site at their locations, and visitors could drop by to learn more about the organization, its work, its purpose, and opportunities. And then Souk residents would be given access through a website and also through advertising to a map indicating where all service organizations that are participating are located, along with a short description of each organization. And what we're hoping is that residents would visit as many of these groups as intrigue them, and that conversation could take place, and that there might be many meaningful connections would be made for the residents of Souk to participate and organizations to receive new volunteers. In endeavoring to carry that out, our request is for $2,500 to cover the costs of advertising, posters, banners, and internet and lawn signs as well. Thank you.
I'll, I guess, follow up a little bit here with, we've already organized a website. It currently hasn't been advertised out. It's, just there with, it's fairly well complete with the exception of names of organizations that have expressed interest. We haven't gone to that. We wanted to come and talk with the district first. We have been given a notice by the Souk News Mirror that should we, ask for a full page ad, it would be just over $1,000. And by having it in one of their editions, that they would then sponsor us for a second one. And, Rod and Bev over there are really great. So, this is sort of the sense of community. And I think that this type of a arrangement with Searchin is already sort of bubbling. We met with Christine Bossy and she was great. We just had a meeting last Tuesday. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the request. Just a question I would have. So you mentioned 2,500, so that's come down from 3,000. Is that because of the Souk News Mirrors? Heard.
Yes, I mean, we had even at one point considered $5,000 as a request. And that would have included a canopy tent, customized. But when we spoke with Christina and Surgeon, we sort of gone towards our position during this event will be in their boardroom that they have next to their main office. So the banners and, you know, all the lawn signs will be plenty. Yeah, that was the biggest difference. Oh, pardon me. And we weren't expecting for the Emir to offer, you know, any sponsorship, so that they have was another big one.
Okay, and then the funding would go to the suit, like if council was interested in writing a check, would they write that to the Souk Multi-Belief Initiative, or would it be to Souk Region Community Health Network?
No, it would be to the Souk Moon Community Wellness Society, which is the parent group of the Souk Multi-Belief. I guess it could have the Souk Multi-Belief Initiative name on the check, and it would be recognized as a subgroup.
Okay, so Souk Moon Community Wellness Society would fit though.
Yes.
Okay, just so that we have that correct. Counselors, do you have any questions? Counselor McMath?
I love this idea. Thank you so much. People are always looking and they're not sure where to go or who to talk to. I have one question. So you're thinking about doing it sort of around town so people can stop in at those places. You probably already did, but have you had a discussion about hosting it at one location and each business or group has a booth? So then for someone who only has a limited amount of time, they could pop in.
It had been a consideration that we did talk of. When we spoke of it, the time required to book the community hall, this community hall seemed longer and not as available on Saturdays as, you know, when we were checking into it. The discussion then immediately went to the Philharmonic Garden Tour, and that's where we put the name tour in here. At one point, I had actually called it the Souk Volunteer Garden Tour, and then I thought, oh no, that'll create a bit of conflict. So we just went to the, you know, tour. And everybody's been pretty upbeat about the concept of having people wherever they're comfortable, and that they can come and work out of the property at the Surgeon Building on Church.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I sort of like the idea. I mean, it's a great idea because there are a lot of people, newcomers to Souk, and I see some representatives from the chamber back there, and they have the newcomers club. But there are a lot of people who don't necessarily know what all the different groups are doing, even Lions and Rotary. Like if this is an idea that came up at the Economic Development Committee in the last term, was to have like a career fair for all of the different volunteer groups, so that you have kind of a one-stop place where people can go and get information on what all of the different groups are doing in one spot. And I think I sort of favor that idea myself. And it was done, WorkLink held one at the high school last year. I think it was last year, and had a really good turnout. And so maybe we can talk to the school district and have them make some space available to do it on a Saturday.
Well, I think part of it is starting, right? So, you know, I think we could all throw, oh yeah, and you should do this and do that and do all of these things too. And then it's like, wait a second, we just, so, you know, I think it's great. I think council will take this away. Obviously it's here tonight because of timing. And yeah, it's a case of starting with something and then you're going to get feedback. And then next year, when community grants opens up, maybe you'll look at, okay, you know, I think we really do need that a specific canopy. There's opportunities there. And then also what are our takeaways? Sometimes folks all like to come to one place and other times people like to visit corners of the community they otherwise didn't know were there and see spaces. As in the years to come, Worklings building is going to open up other potential opportunities. You know, there's other projects coming online. There's new developments that are going to be open. You know, and maybe it's, so yeah, you need to start with something. So I like that you're starting with something and then can grow the idea and see what works in years to come and then start to build on the piece. But I do know that there's a lot of people that have moved, that want to get involved, that want to know more, that like to see, even have a look behind the scenes sometimes. We can look to see what our capacity is. Could we host something here in the parking lot or in Chambers on that day, even as a stop? You know, there's other pieces to grow from. So thank you for bringing it forward as an idea to start. Councillor Beddoes.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for bringing this forward. Being involved in a number of community volunteer organizations, always looking for new help and new blood, and especially a new skill set. Like at the food bank, we're looking for some people with some organizational skills. A lot of people like to come in and move groceries around, but we're desperately needing people that have some management skills too. So I think that'll work in well for all of us. And if you need an extra tent or two, you contact the Souk Lions and they have more than one. So
Thank you.
Good luck, and I'd be supporting this initiative.
Councillor Pearson, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eby, or through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Eby and Sifu Moonfist. Excellent initiative. And to echo the mayor's comments, you know, a starting place is a starting place. And looking forward, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had eventually had a catalog, and we've talked about that, a catalog of volunteer organizations in our community. And so, you know, embryonic starts are exactly what we need, as somebody taking this and running with it. So I'll be supporting this initiative. So thank you very much, both of you, for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one piece I'll add is that the Souk Community Association is hosting the All Souk Family Picnic in August. And I'm not sure where they're at with vendors, but they are offering like free space for setup. So you may want to reach out there. It may be a way just to have a presence and to say, hey, we're doing this on this date.
That's excellent.
And
idea.
just to like plant the seed there and then, you know, come visit us and you could showcase some of the materials that you have at that time.
Okay.
So that's a thought. It's at the Fred Milne soccer pitch on August 18th, I believe. So, and it's an all-day event, but you may want to reach out to former councillor Bev Berger is one of the organizers there, and she may be able to share if they have space available.
Thank you. Wonderful idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gray?
Just wanted to clarify or make sure if council was aware that in search and service agreement, there is a section about doing this exact thing, just FYI. So if this is maybe funding over and above what Search-N is getting to do one of these activities, just wanted to clarify that with council, that this is one of the items in Search-N's current service agreement with the district is for volunteer recruitment initiatives. I'm assuming this is a specific initiative.
But they've also done a few earlier this year though. So I think it's building on the work that they have, because they've been doing that in like sort of especially coming out of COVID, and then they have, I'm aware, but yeah, thank you for flagging that. I know that they've done that as well. And so I think it's just to grow the idea a bit more. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a very good comment. Thank you. And it was one of the issues that we're aware of that made us approach Search-N. Because Christine Bossy, I mean, Search-N is sort of like the parent to the Souk Volunteer Center. And as that is, you know, there with them, we have been relying upon Search-N for some advice and words. And we had Christine Bossy sit into our monthly SMBI meeting just last week, and it was great. I know this one isn't exactly big, but the logo that I've done now has the Search-N logo beside the SMBI logo and the Souk Moon, and that's what we're starting to put on letterhead for this event. So it's a recognition. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McMath.
Just to our Interim CAO, Jubilee from council contingency.
Yes, the sponsorship budget's only 2,500 and there's already been 600 spent. So council's contingency would be the preferred option.
So then I would make the motion. That
Okay,
counts.
so that was my procedural question to ask is council comfortable putting forward a motion now, or would you prefer that it come under new business in the agenda? We can let it soak in.
Seeing as how Councillor Bateman's recused himself, just for efficiency's sake, I'd go now.
Okay, then read it out, please.
The council award funding in the amount of $2,500 to the Sioux Community Wellness Society for the purposes of a volunteer recruitment tour, and that funds be provided from council contingency.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor McMouth?
I've already touched on it, but thank you so much for coming forward and supporting Search and is connecting these two disconnected pieces. So thank you.
It's our pleasure.
Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, this is good. Thanks for bringing it forward. Happy to support it.
Anything, Councillor? Nope. Councillors, okay, I'll call a question then. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. If you could please turn off the microphone, we'll get that through finance and get you on your way, and good luck and thank you for the idea. Okay. Okay, if we can return Councillor Bateman to the room, was the other delegation located? No, okay, so we'll move on. And welcome back, Councillor Bateman. And we're moving into item 6, which is report of the Chief Administrative Officer, please.
Okay, thank you. This is the thank you to our communications coordinator who's back from vacation and has a lot of exciting items to report on for this report of the Chief Administrative Officer. Just wanted to thank Sergeant Shaw as well for working with him has been great, and looking forward to working with Sergeant Wilcox as we move the RCMP department forward to provide a safe community for the residents of Sioux. Some of the events coming up in the next few weeks here would be the Sioux Fine Arts Show, starts July 27th through to August 7th at Sea Park. Would encourage everyone to attend that. It looks like it's going to be an amazing event. Coming back this year is the All Sioux Day Family Picnic, August 19th at Fred Milne Park. Encourage everyone to attend that as well. And ongoing would be the community markets on Thursday night at the Sioux Region Museum from 5 to 8 p.m. and the Sioux Country Market on Saturdays from 10 to 2 p.m. right beside the fire station here. As well, attending those markets will be staff is attending them on various dates to encourage participation in the annual budget survey, putting my finance hat back on here, and will be available to receive and answer resident questions at that time. Also wanted to highlight, if anyone doesn't follow us on Twitter, there's an amazing event happening. You might want to watch a show tomorrow and see if your local community might be featured on it. Tomorrow night, just check it out. Human resources is an ongoing need in the district. We are constantly in a cycle of recruiting and onboarding new staff. So right now we are currently recruiting for a permanent general support clerk, emergency program manager to work with up in the fire department, the lead engineering technologist, a chief building official, and building official auxiliary pools. We're undergoing interviews right now for the manager of parks and environmental services, as well as the engineering technologist and a manager of community planning. Happy to announce we've filled a couple vacancies for the corporate services assistant. Congratulations to Thomasina Barnes, an internal staff member who got that promotion. And with that move, there's one new familiar face at the front desk for anyone calling or coming in, and that would be Christy McPhee, and she'll be happy to help you. With that and the another long-term staff that's on a leave right now, we have 3 basically brand new reception staff at the front. So just ask for everyone's patience as they're calling in with their questions. Everyone's doing their best to get up to speed as quickly as possible. Communications, public participation. So yeah, the annual budget survey now has 131 surveys completed as of today, and over 250 people have been engaged at these various pop-ups that have been happening. So budget survey started a few years ago, and staff have been actively promoting this every year to increase participation and get some much needed feedback from the community on service levels and what you would like to see happen and what priorities you would like the budget dollars to be spent on in the current year in the future years. And yeah, there will be mailing lists. We're doing another random mail out survey to certain residents just to get their feedback. If anyone's not on websites and doesn't want to do surveys, we'll have paper surveys available to people, as well as they can call in and answer some questions that staff are ready to take their responses for. OCP update, that website's now been updated. There's a frequently asked questions section, and that website will be the most reliable source for information about the OCP. The latest and greatest information should be found there. And I would encourage everyone to go there first and see what you can find. And if you can't find your information, please connect with us and we'll be happy to do what we can to answer your question. There is the community story. So that just touches on the climate action plan and meeting our emission reduction targets will take all of us working together. And we're hearing about residents on how changes they're making are helping them save money with the current economic realities. We're anticipating more people would like to figure out ways to save money. So there's a couple videos out. There'll be more coming. So stay tuned to our website and further communications that go out through our newsletters and Let's Talk Souk pages for lots of information climate. There's always a tweet that to be found that will have a link to some more information if anyone is looking for that. Couple quick project updates. Development approvals project is underway. Staff meetings have been started with the contractor started meeting with staff. Initial interviews have occurred, 21 so far. And then the next step of that will be to confirm a communication or meeting plan with the development community and as well as council, and just to ensure that we got all the information available and before the next step is moved on to, which would be to come up with a new plan, a best practice of how to try and improve our permit processing timelines, which is not a problem that is unique to Souk. Lots of municipalities have this problem. So thankfully we have this grant that will help provide some ideas and best practices that we can implement that will hopefully streamline the process and cut the red tape that the district has control over. I want to highlight there will be still red tape that may come from the province or federal authorities, but we'll do what we can to cut the red tape that the district has control over. Ravensridge Park, that is proceeding ahead. Tenders have been issued, I believe, to proceed with the next steps of finalizing that great community asset. On the agenda tonight are the Church and Charters Road contract awards for council's consideration to complete those two necessary corridor roads in the town core here to help improve transportation. And I will leave it at that in the interest of time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your update, Ms. Gray, and all the work that you're juggling at the moment. We really appreciate everything you're doing and that of the staff as well. It takes all of us. Yes. Okay, everyone, we're moving into item 7, which is our public question and comment period. So this is where we would like to invite any members of the public that would have a question or a comment. There's a limit of 2 minutes per speaker, and this is the only time on the agenda for public input on all remaining items. So everything but the development variance permit, because that's closed, it's issued and done. So any remaining items, this is the one and only time. And we put 2 minutes on. Please just introduce yourself. We just need your name, the local government that you live in. So Souk would suffice. And if you can let us know which item in particular you would like to speak to, so we can make a note of it and be prepared to answer your question when that item comes forward. So it's a lot said, but welcome. There's also the lights here, so there's like a hard stop at 2 minutes. Thank you. And please just turn on the microphone so we can all hear you.
I'm Veronica Pemberton Billing. I live in Souk. I'm going to speak to agenda item 9.1 regarding Community Climate Action Seed Grant, attachment 4, page 61, the Fireweed Society. The applicants were on the Municipal Climate Action Committee. One of the stated goals in this application is to develop an educational strategy and to share, quote, reliable information, unquote. I'm very concerned about this and who determines exactly what is reliable information, as both the Climate Action Plan and the draft OCP contain information that is verifiably false. One example, page 11 of the Climate Action Plan and page 144 of the draft OCP both make reference to increases in the number and intensity of forest fires as an effect of climate change. This is simply not true, and in fact, the record shows the opposite. The Canadian Wildland Fire Information System shows that the number of forest fires in Canada has actually been going down since the 1990s. According to Ross McKittrick, an environmental economics professor at the University of Guelph, even the IPCC is not saying that wildfires are a detectable effect of climate change. The increased size and intensity of wildfires in Canada can be attributed to poor forest management by our governments, specifically the lack of controlled burns to prevent the accumulation of underbrush, which acts as fuel for forest fires, making them hotter. Parks Canada has only scheduled 24 controlled burns this year for all of Canada. By comparison, in 2019, the US had over 151,000 controlled burns. Furthermore, according to an information officer with the BC Coastal Fire Centre in June, 46 out of 46 fires on Vancouver Island so far this year were caused by humans, either through negligence or arson. I request that funding be withheld from the Fireweed Society until the Climate Action Plan and the OCP are corrected and some procedure for verifying the accuracy of so-called reliable information is put in place. Thank you. And thank you all for your work. I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Other speakers this evening? Yes, please come ahead or come forward.
Thank you. Your worship, councillors. Hello, my name is Lindsay Percival and I'm here from Souk. I'm representing the Souk Tourism Association and I am here to speak to item 9.1 on the agenda regarding the Community Climate Action Seed Grant. Firstly, I wanted to express my gratitude to council for considering our proposal to create a CERTA climate action plan that aligns with the district's 2030 action plan at 50% of our proposal. Your generous support could enable CERTA to carry out an initial analysis, general strategic alignment, as well as documentation and reporting. And it could also allow us to produce a comprehensive CERTA climate action plan that is closely aligned with the districts and to deliver a final report with recommendations and best practices for Souk's tourism businesses. The other 50% of our original proposal has been set aside for a Royal Roads University student if and when that arrangement can be secured. So we wanted to say thank you for that as well, and for your time and consideration on this project. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Other speakers tonight?
Here we go. I feel like a Muppet. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Britt Santowski and I live in Souk. I'm here to speak to item 12.2, Black Press's request from you guys, requesting that the district stop all advertising with Meta platforms and Facebook, Instagram, and as former publisher of Souk Pocket News that used to get 4,000 to 6,000 hits per day, very proud of that achievement. I could not agree more with Black Press's request. Souk should not be spending tax dollars on businesses that are out of country. The spending hierarchy should be Souk first, then Vancouver Island, then BC, and then the rest of Canada before we support international organizations that have zero commitment to Souk. Souk has influencers, publishers, and organizations that have a strong social media reach, my beg is that you support them first. And also, I'd encourage you to have your own presence on social media. There is no better way to get ahead of misinformation as it happens, when it happens online, than to be there. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Other speakers tonight?
Ellen Lewis, I just wanted to speak to the volunteer tour. I was a member of Sauk Region Volunteer Association for 10 years, and I'm still involved with searching, and there's 200 volunteer groups are invited twice a year to our meetings. We just had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, I guess it was, and I think there was something like 60 of us there. So we are, if you read what we do, that's what we do. We promote the volunteers. We we also at the Sauk Region Volunteer Center, they on the website, they also, if you need volunteers for each group, you just let them know, and you can go on their website and say it's a Sauk Fall Fair, for instance. You go on the website and you can say we need positions for this, and this. So the system's already there. I just to let you know, when I was listening to Moonfest, I went, it's already there. So I think you maybe should look up the Sauk Region Volunteer Center and have a look at it before you make any further decisions. Thank you.
Okay, other speakers this evening? I'll call for a second time. Anyone? Third and final time. This is the only time on the agenda now. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending and for your contributions tonight. We'll move on in the agenda into the item 8, which is our consent agenda. So that would be that item number 8 to be adopted by general consent, which is basically the correspondence to be received and filed unless councillors wish to poll for the next agenda. So Councillor Bateman?
Yes. Yeah, just in continuing to poll correspondence related to the OCP, substantial pieces, numbers 6F, BB, CC, and DD. So that's from Ekaterina Verganova, and that's the latest chain letter we've received, and that's the first of many examples, but I think we only need to see one of them. Then there's a letter from Debbie Clarkson, Randy Clarkson, and Don Brown, and they're all related to the OCP. So those ideally will go on the October 3rd agenda. I also wanted to pull item L, number 43, from Jane Devonshire. That relates to the zero carbon step code. We've requested a presentation, and hopefully that can be part of that agenda. Thank you.
Okay, so those items then will go to the OCP agenda, and then item L will go in with the, with that address. So that to be date. Okay, so those are the items pulled. And then all remaining correspondence will be adopted by general consent. So do I have a mover for this, please? Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor McMath. Anything else to pull from anyone? See none, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 9, and under 9.1 is the reports on the Community Climate Action Seed Grant Stream, the pilot project. So this is a year 1 launch. We wanted to get it out and out the door. So, and then we can sort of look at what we want to do going forward. So I'll turn it over to staff just to briefly take us through this report, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council is aware, up to $40,000 has been allocated in this year's budget for the Community Climate Action or Seed or CAS funding pilot project. Thank you. Application intake ran from June 1st to 30th, and we received 14 applications requesting a little over $68,000 in funding. Staff reviewed the applications against the posted criteria to determine the recommendations for council's consideration. These are captured in Appendix A of the staff report. All applicants submitted were complete and aligned with the Sauk 2030 Climate Action Plan. However, the impact specific to Sauk residents did vary. Projects providing the greatest impact for residents were prioritized. and given funding requests exceed the funding available, it is not recommended that projects seeking funding for individual properties without neighborhood collaboration be supported. In that capacity, it is important to note that when provincial or federal grants or rebates supporting individual property stewardship are available, staff will amplify these opportunities to maximize awareness of such programs for residents. Additionally, given the pilot perspective of this initiative and the timeline of launch midway through the year, several projects, including their budgets involved, will span from 2023 to 2024. Where this is the case, to maximize efficiency and effectively plant seeds and reap the maximum benefit for the community, staff recommend allocating a total of $37,520 of the $40,000 this year, as identified in Appendix A of the staff report, while also providing a predetermination of funding of $13,520 for 2024. Again, that's where applicants have indicated the costs incurred will be in early next year. With the provincial contribution through the Local Government Climate Action Program, this approach does not present a significant financial impact on the district. Should this initiative proceed as recommended by staff, staff will communicate measurable program deliverables to successful applicants, and in receiving project updates as required in the program application, will provide a follow-up report to council on the status of initiatives for year end. At that time, staff will also bring forward recommendations based on feedback from the program to date to inform the year 2 call for applications of this pilot project. So to summarize the potential reach and impact of the proposed programs, for a total investment of $51,040 between now and the early days of 2024, the anticipated reach and impact of the CAS pilot project for year 1 includes connecting with more than 2,000 residents through at least 23 low to no cost community events, workshops, and education stations, development of at least 2 new community volunteer programs in Sooke, enhancement of at least 4 district parks, including tree planting to increase our urban tree canopy, development of 1 fire smart street, and integration and alignment between the Sooke Region Tourism Association Climate Action Plan and the District of Sooke's Climate Action Plan. Further, given council's discussion on July 17th, there's potential for works to be sown on a new community garden. However, council's preference on this particular initiative through strategic planning, I think it's important to recognize that the current recommendation allocates essential seed funding for this initiative to proceed when most appropriate. So before us is an opportunity to learn, adapt, and evolve through this year 1 of a 2-year pilot project. I think on that note, I'll speak to the residents' comments earlier. I think that this is a prime opportunity for us to pilot. The candidates from the applicants from the Fire Breeze Society are 2 doctoral professors that have dedicated their careers to climate action. And humbly, they are far more qualified than me to speak to and best respond to the concerns expressed today. So I think we have a really unique opportunity where people have come forward with the areas of expertise to respond to the needs of Sooke. And with that, we have a recommendation for you.
Okay, thank you. So that's the appendix here where it shows we have the applicant, the project, the deliverables, the request, and then the recommended funding. And then that brings us to the total that is just under our allocation there. So thank you very much for your work on this. I know that it's a lot to do in a very short time. And while you're back from vacation, there's going to be a lot to communicate out once this passes in terms of all these other events that are popping up. But it is wonderful to see that residents come forward and to take on these very interesting and dynamic projects. So thank you very much for that. Questions from members of council? Okay, so I'm going to put the recommendation forward then, and that is that council approves funds as recommended in Appendix A of the written staff report and directs staff to contact applicants regarding status reporting and providing related support for the CCAS funding year 1 project. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor McMath. So Councillor Beddoes on the motion, any comments?
No, just really do appreciate staff's put a lot of work into this, and I do appreciate the community rising to the occasion with all these wonderful ideas. So I look forward to see what comes out of this. So thanks.
Councillor McMath? Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, thank you to staff. I think this came a bit out of the blue back in January, February, this idea of funding community grants for, it's climate action, but it's also, community improvement projects here. We're improving the quality of life in our community, while at the same time doing some good climate smart actions. I think just thank you for speaking up for the Fireweed Foundation. Those two women are building, creating capacity building techniques and tools that will allow multiple other groups and neighborhoods and individuals to start taking actions of various kinds. Perhaps that, I'm sure the point about wildfires being caused by human negligence is absolutely true, and the need to remove fuel from the forests. At the same time, the Climate Action Plan is very much rooted in peer-reviewed science. And I think there's no question this year of all years that we're in the grip of some changing climatary events here on dear old planet Earth. So yeah, I think just thank you to all of you, particularly 606 Water Group is in the house tonight, and they're utilizing their tent and canopy and table that they got through the community grant program and now taking it to the next stage. And also to Zero Waste Souk and Paula Johansson here, who's Zero Waste Souk is these repair cafes and swaps at the library. I hope you all know about them. That you can go in and anyway, I could go on. Thanks.
No, thank you, Councillor Bateman. And I know that there are some groups that are doing multiple different things. So engaging your membership in different ways and perhaps finding things that certain people are interested in. And I've appreciated the feedback that the Water 606 group have been providing in terms of what type of conversations you're having. It's all very informative. And certainly the repair cafes. Yeah, I think we need to really get that note out there, because there's always something that needs fixing. Right? It's like I'll bring a truckload of things. Anyway, no, it's well done, and also to the staff, because this is a lot of work here. So that's been moved and seconded. So seeing nothing else, I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? None opposed. So that carries unanimously. Thank you. And we look forward to hearing more of your great work going forward. Okay, next up is 9.2 Manzer Road traffic concerns.
Thank you, Worship. So following the completion of the ministry's Highway 14 improvement project, Manzer Road was extended and connected to Gillespie Road, and the existing access to Manzer Road onto Highway 14 has been changed into a right-in, right-out configuration. There's been numerous complaints that have been received from the residents on Manzer of speeding and increased traffic volumes for their neighborhood. This is resulting from vehicles that are traveling from Souk to East Souk using Manzer Road as a bypass to get to Gillespie, as opposed to taking the appropriate interchange access off of Highway 14 to connect to Gillespie Road. Staff have met with all the residents, or the ones that attended, on site to obtain feedback and hear their concerns. Further, staff placed the district speed reader board on Manzer Road to confirm the increased volume of traffic. Did that for a 17-day period. Daily traffic volumes ranged from a low of 166 vehicles per day up to 265 vehicles per day, with a peak hourly volume of 42 vehicles in a 1 hour period. From the 19 properties that are on Manzer Road, 14 are in support of gating Manzer Road at Highway 14. 1 property is opposed, 2 properties are good either way, and 1's undecided. And no input was received from 1 property owner. After assessing this issue from an engineering operations standpoint, in collaboration with the fire chief, staff recommendation to council will be to install a temporary emergency access gate on Manzer Road at Highway 14, as well as installing signage indicating local traffic only at Manzer and Gillespie Road. Cost of installing the gate will be approximately $27,000, funded from the 2023 road safety budget. And following recommendation is put forward to council for consideration, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Once this happens, because sort of what I've heard is that it's I don't know if it's Apple Maps or Google Maps, like that's where it is directing now residents to go a particular way rather than off the highway. Do we have a way of communicating to that entity that there's a gate now? Because you're gonna have people, if they don't update, like, I don't know how it works, like how often do they update it? Because then it'll still direct people there that then are gonna either hit the gate or then turn around in frustration and sort of probably speed up more to then go back onto the highway to go that way. Like, do we have some way of influencing that at all?
We got a very talented IT department. I'm sure they could reach out and figure out how to
Okay.
contact Google.
Because I think that, it's just this is Google is this big thing out there, but it is. So I don't know how that works. So I think that would just be important, like, should this pass that, because otherwise everyone's going to continue to do that. Counselor McMath, you're looking at me funny.
It's my face. So I live right there and I've never had a Google map recommendation to take that route. And I can hear vehicles perhaps not abiding by the signage there. And I would suggest it's not tourists or people that aren't from the community. I would say it's the reverse. It's people that are very familiar that live nearby that are using that bypass.
Okay. So it's not, I don't use it because I freak out when things talk to me. I have enough going on in my head, and to have the car now, like they're last, and I'm like, we argue, like, I can't do it. I need a map. So I don't know what that looks like, but sort of that's what I heard, that it's people navigating, heading to East Souk, and then they're just following, like, turn right, but that isn't the case then. Interesting. Okay. Well, it may correct itself. I should try it just to see what happens. I have to go that way on Friday. But thank you for that. I guess it's more just, there's a cut through. It's this beautiful paved road, and let's do it. And that's causing either way. Okay, so we have a recommendation. Pardon me? So go this way, just. Okay. I don't know how much time you save, but all right, whatever. I think we have a solution here that seems to me most of the concerns. My understanding when this was added to the highway corridor plans, it was to be an emergency egress only. Like, that was why it got added, was to do this. It wasn't for improvements. It was more just another way of connecting. Should there be a closure, we have a workaround. So it is meant to be for emergency, and here's the connection. So, but that mostly was determined by our former electoral area director. So it was a discussion that came afterwards. Okay. Questions, go ahead.
Yeah, so through you to the chief, or to Mr. Carter, the gate will be locked and the key will be in the hands of Souk Fire, I assume, RCMP, MOTI, and BC Ambulance. Not BC Ambulance.
Not BC Ambulance.
Not RC. Okay.
Through the chair. Yeah, no, just Souk Fire and Modi.
Okay. And when you come, you have these keys very much at hand on your keychains. I know the person who's opposed to this is concerned that there might be delays getting the gate open, and that sort of issue.
There's always a concern, but now that we have 24/7 coverage, and our fire department does tend to be the first on scene for almost anything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be able to get it sorted.
I felt I needed to ask that question.
No, I'm glad that you raised it, because it is a very fair concern about that. It was similar to when we dealt with bollards and how would this work and how do you get through these things? But we have the crew, like if we were stuck maybe back to, we don't have volunteers, it would be a different scenario. But I think just given the way the service delivery is and the planning that's been done, it's still relatively early to make the correction. And then, yeah, you got to turn around and go the other way, and it's only a minute longer. Okay. Anything else from council? Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Is it a comment or are you just asking questions?
A question, and then I'll read out the recommendation.
I have a comment, but I'll wait.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council direct staff to temporarily install an emergency gate to allow for fire and Ministry of Transportation access in the case of emergency on Manza Road at Highway 14. And that council direct staff to prepare an amendment to the traffic and highway regulation bylaw that will allow the municipal engineer to place traffic control devices for the purpose of permitting local traffic only, and for council to consider closing Manza Road through traffic with an emergency gate. So look for a mover by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. So speaking to it, any comments, Councillor Lajeunesse?
I'll just say it just makes out, it begins right at the very start of that 4-lane, and I tried navigating in and it was a little awkward, and then getting onto that road for the first time, it's twisty, it's narrow, it's very effective to get you to Gillespie. But clearly with, the 200 and as many as 265 vehicles a day now on that road, with the top recorded speed of 56 kilometers an hour, I think I understand why the residents are a little upset.
Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, I've heard from several residents as well, and I think this is a simple solution and it's the only solution.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, the only mixed thing I have about it is our transportation master plan states that you're supposed to, whenever opportunity to have connectivity, that you do not have roads that just abruptly end. But I think in this case, it reminds me of when I come into Souk and you're by Timmy's there, the station, and you see cars go down by the school to beat the line, and they go like hell. And I've seen the police down there a few times giving tickets, but I see it each and every time. And I can imagine that's what's going on with Manza too, as people are taking that shortcut, and it's not a safe situation. So I support putting the gate there, little reluctantly, because it goes against something that we sort of are trying to promote. But I think everything has its own individual pluses and minuses. And I think in this case, in the interest of safety, this is the only way to go. So I support it.
Well, and the whole highway's been upgraded. So to improve all of that. So it's not like there's not an approved way to go there. No. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 9.3, Charters Corridor Tender.
Thank you, Worship. So on June 30th, 2023, district closed the tender for the construction of Charters Corridor Improvement Project extending from Throop Road to Gollage Road. 3 tender bids were received for the project, with Hazelwood Construction Services having the low bid at $6,287,977. All bids submitted were checked for errors in submission and included bid bond, as well as an agreement to provide performance, labor, and material bond documents. The total 2023 project budget allocated for this is $6,950,000. After the CRD portion is removed from the low bid on this, the remaining low bid for the district's portion of the work is $5,800,000. The remaining project budget for engineering, inspections, quality control, contract administration, project management, as well as contingencies for change orders is approximately 1.15 million. And this provides a construction contingency of approximately 10%, which is typical for a project of this magnitude. The following resolution is presented to council for consideration of project award to Hazelwood Construction Services.
Mr. Carter, when will this kick off? September 6th. Just like
right when school starts, both will
Really?
start up right away. No, it's not going to happen like this. Fortunately, as you'll see in the next award recommendation for the roundabout project, Hazelwood Construction was the successful bidder for both these projects, which is absolutely beneficial. We have provided an overall transportation traffic management plan they must follow, and they must submit one accordingly. We will have further details on the construction schedules, but from my understanding preliminarily, the roundabout project will be tackled first with substantial completion going into spring 2024. And the initial startup of the Charters Corridor project will start up in January 2024. And that's strategically so we can hit fish windows when we're doing the major culvert replacement as part of that project.
Okay, so roundabout first, and then this work will sort of, it's being planned out, but then it'll kick off around, okay, that's fine. So one and then the other, not both at the same time. That could be fun, not really. Okay. No, that's great. And then it's from Throop Road to Gollage. So we're coming down the hill there. Okay. I think it's important just as we get the windows is just to, you know, obviously communicate out to the schools. A lot of the schools also send out newsletters to parents. So it's a reminder about this, and that helps because out of habit, you go the same way. And then it's like, so the newsletters at the schools certainly will help. Obviously, anyone that's involved.
Oh, no.
That was interesting. I guess it's Counselor Pearson's back, so I'll go to you in a moment. And then just messaging for ball season and, you know, all those sorts of things. Okay. Counselor Pearson, I heard you, I think.
No, I had two audience members that joined me in my vehicle as I'm doing this in Parksville. One of them 6 years old and one's 7 years old. And so they're quite interested in local government.
Well, I guess we have to start somewhere, right? So prepare
Exactly.
the next
One of them
generation.
said, oh no. So thank you, Director of Engineering. What was the difference between the first price bid or the first place bid and the second place bid? It seemed like it was quite a gap.
Yeah, through your worship to Counselor Pearson, low bid as stated was 6,287,000 and second bid was 7,462,000 and change.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but wonder when I saw that gap. And of course, and I appreciate you've said everything there. It just seemed like that's an enormous gap, and we haven't seen that before. So, or maybe I haven't, anyways. Seemed like usually they're closer. You know what I mean, percentage wise. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20%. Seemed a little unusual.
Yeah, from experience and just seeing a lot of these projects tendered out, Hazelwood provides very competitive bids. They've ramping up and doing a lot of business on the island, and they're securing a lot of projects, maybe reducing their project margin to ramp up their business. And that's probably where we're seeing pricing like this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just was curious. That's all. It just seemed like the gap was so big.
Okay. So any other questions? And then I'll go to the recommendation here. I just lost it on my screen. Okay, so here it is. That council award the Charters Road Corridor Project contract to Hazelwood Construction Services, Inc. in the amount of $6,287,977.14. It's very precise, excluding GST. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse, seconded by Councillor McMath. Would you like to comment, Councillor Lajeunesse?
Sure. Yeah, I thought the delta between the bids was a little high as well, but, and I'm not usually one to go with the lowest bidder, but knowing the contractor that's being chosen here and the work that they've done for us previously, I'm confident that they'll do a good job.
Okay, Councillor McMath? No? Just excited to see this work happening. So thank you very much for just getting through this. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next is the Church Road roundabout piece.
Thank you, Worship. Similarly closed on June 30th. District closed a tender for the roundabout project at Church and Throop Road. One tender bid was received for this project. Hazelwood Construction Services is having this bid and the low bid at $3,797,631. Bid submitted similarly checked for errors in submission, included bid bond agreement, as well as to provide performance, labor and material bond documents. Total project budget, $4.5 million for this project, and the remaining budget for QC inspections, engineering, project management, contract admin and contingencies, $702,000. And this similarly to charters provides an approximate 10% contingency for this project. Following resolution presented to council for consideration for project award to Hazelwood Construction Services.
Okay, questions. I just had issues opening the file, like opening the sketch. So I'm wondering if you could send it in a different way. When I click on the file, my iPad wants me to call somebody. So it starts to try to phone people. And then the other one, it tries to download, but then it won't open. And I think it's just, it's the device I'm using. It's huge files. So the other one was fine for the, I don't know. Maybe you could print one. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I was just curious as to why, like in the previous report, you had 3 different bids, and this one, it only shows the price of the chosen contractor.
You did indicate it's the only bid we received,
Okay.
but it came in under budget. So that's good. Because that's concerning when it doesn't. Okay. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, through you to Mr. Carter, what did Hazelwood learn in juggling the 2 projects, Otter Point and Church, in 2021? What were there holdups, and or did it? What are the takeaway lessons from that experience?
Through your worship, Councillor Bateman, there wasn't any holdups that were unexpected. Everything was managed according to the traffic management plans they provided. Every project is going to have some delays that affect the public, but everything was managed pretty responsibly. And I don't think there was any major issues or concerns with how it was managed on those 2 projects.
Okay. And I'm curious about the roundabout itself. Is it going to be very much like our one roundabout we currently have, or does it have any features or other than functionality?
Yeah, no, roundabout will be very similar to the one that's in the center of town right now. Accommodates same traffic loading and vehicles, because this will be an alternate sort of bypass route eventually through Sooke when the connectors put in through Sea Park, north of Sea Park there. So yeah, very similar, be landscaped in the center, and very similar features to the one you're seeing in the center of town, except yeah, it'll have 3 legs instead of 4 legs.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council award the Church Road Roundabout Project contract to Hazelwood Construction Services, Inc. in the amount of $3,797,631.38, excluding GST. Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Would you like to comment on this? Councillor Beddoes?
No.
And then please just keep us apprised of timelines and what's happening. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor then? Anyone opposed? Nope, that's unanimous as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Okay. 9.5 is CRIP 2023 Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports.
Through the chair, thanks and good evening. So this is a report on the Community Resiliency Investment Program, basically our Fire Smart program. So we take advantage of UBCM grant funding to operate our Fire Smart program. We've been successful the last 2 years in acquiring funds for that program. Our program is starting to catch on, getting some traction, so to speak. It's been challenging, and most programs such as this are challenging, just based on the time it takes to educate the public in regards to what it is we're trying to achieve. And I think our Fire Smart coordinator is doing a great job to this point. So previously, council has endorsed similar grant application, one in 2021 and the other one in 2022. So moving forward, we're back here at the table again, just trying to keep the funding going so we can continue to do good work. One of the things I'll note about moving forward into the next year, meaning 2024, one of the requirements to be able to secure more funding will be having an updated community wildfire resiliency plan, as well as having a permanent Fire Smart coordinator. So those two things will be put in place. I'm just doing a final review of the updated community wildfire resiliency plan. And the hope is to have somebody come and do a presentation to council probably in September or October, when everybody's back from summer vacation. So all that's coming together. Basically, the Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Program provides funding to local governments and First Nations in BC to increase community resiliency by undertaking community-based Fire Smart planning and activities that reduce the community's risk from wildfire. There's been some talk tonight, obviously, around climate change and what's going on around us. Our province is inundated right now as we speak with lots of wildfires. I get news flashes every day. They're having wildfires in Greece. They're having wildfires down east. Lots going on. I think we have an obligation in regards to community safety to move this stuff forward and keep doing the good work we're doing. So basically, the recommendation before you tonight is that council endorse a funding application to UBCM's Community Resiliency Investment Program 2023 for the sum of $199,000. Sorry, 199,01967.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Are
you.
there questions for the fire chief? Our fire chief? Questions?
Yeah.
So I had a look at the application booklet, and it stated maximum of $100,000. But you found a wrinkle.
There's a catch, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess that depending on how you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, we're in a high threat area based on our fuel. So we are allowed to get a little bit more money. So that's why we've reached out and we're going for the maximum. The hope is we're going to get that. There's a cost, obviously, to pay the coordinator, and then some of the projects we've outlaid in the application form have a cost as well. So.
Okay, and I just a bit of a comment leading to a question that's based back on Mrs. Pemberton's comments about wildfires and climate action. I was looking at it's Bruce Blackwell is your consultant, right? So the current Sooke Community Wildfire Protection Plan, it notes that 6 of the largest 11 wildfire seasons in BC history have occurred in the last decade. And the advent of more routine summer droughts starting in 2015 is causing Western red cedars to die off in growing numbers. And this only adds to the fuel load that will feed future wildfires. So to a degree, climate change is impacting wildfires. Would you agree with that, or what's your thoughts?
I have an opinion, and I think, you can look at both sides of that. I was fortunate enough to do some work with Al Westhaver, who's our Fire Smart guy in Canada, very well respected. And him and I had the opportunity to speak at the Kootenay Wildfire and Climate Change Conference. And that was probably 5 years ago. And what I've witnessed in this province in 5 years is quite drastic in regards to the climate and what's happening around us. So, the comments we heard earlier tonight obviously are true. It is a combination of everything, in my opinion. And I'm not going to say climate change is the leading cause, but it does contribute to it. So.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council endorse a funding application to UBCM's Community Resilient Investment CRI Program 2023 for the sum of $199,019.67. Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, I think it's a worthy investment, and let's just get it done.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I'm witnessing the dead cedars myself. I got 2.5 acres. I look in my back yard there, and they're dying left and right. So things are happening, and we better be ready when the big fire hits us, because it's going to come one day.
Thank you. And I've noticed I don't have quite the scale size property that you have, but certainly the same thing is happening on mine, keeping up with the watering. And so a lot of conversations around the neighborhood are what are the more resilience, what are the deciduous, we're all looking at Fire Smart planting. when we first had the coordinator start, you know, it all sort of like, oh, we all need to get that sprinkler for the roof, but then there's all of these other things to do. And that's why I think every year it's like, okay, you can start with that, but then what are the next pieces and next, and how can we fire smart properties, and then even showcase some of the landscaping. It's all beautiful too. It's just a different choice. I love pampas grass, but we're not planting that. And then just making different choices and selections, and they're all good things to do. And what other choices can you make with siding and fencing and the like? It's very important. So thank you for this and the work that's happening. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is our 2023 second quarter financial operating reports.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll try and be brief. There's not a PowerPoint to go along with this. Just to clarify, this is like the regular quarterly financial report that started a while ago. What you'll see in the fall will be more like the corporate services quarterly report on finance, GIS, and the IT department. That'll include other stats and whatnot. So this is just strictly on the financial operating report for the second quarter. As far as revenue goes, overall, everything's on target to hit budget. Staff and department heads have been good about repurposing any salary saving budgets potentially to other budgets when needed, if consultants or contractors need to be hired on for temporary basis to move things along. We've been reallocating budgets, or as other needs and pressing needs come up, emergencies come up, we've been working together to reallocate budgets. So overall we'll be on come in under budget. For revenues, they're pretty much on target. Little interesting glitch with property tax revenue this year. BC Assessment has changed the way that they let people appeal their assessments, it seems like this year. And normally there's a hard cutoff. But what we found for multiple properties this year is potential errors have been discovered, and normally they would just be corrected in the next year if the property owner did not appeal it in time. But now they have let people appeal them after the fact. So there's a risk to roll of approximately $100,000 this year, which for a district like Sooke is a 1% tax increase in theory. So it's an interesting conversation we've been having with BC Assessment and waiting for sort of final results on that. And we'll definitely keep council apprised if it's something for a future advocacy item, just because budgets are tight and we need to, we rely a lot on that BC Assessment data to determine our tax rates. The other revenue item that's a little bit below for right now, trending lower, is development cost charges. The hope is that as some of these larger scale projects come on board this year, that revenue number will tick up in the next couple of quarters here. Revenue for as far as departments go, most expenses are on track. If you notice a difference in the CAO department budget to actuals from June 2023 to June 2022, that would be because the CAO department in 2022 had the community dev budget as well with them. That has now moved to the planning department. So a little bit of shuffle there. Outside of that, no major differences. Policing, waiting for our first official bill at the 90% on the next quarter to come. So just waiting for confirmation on that. Another policing update that will probably be a topic of conversation for 2024 budget would be the 911 cost download. Emails have just started circulating again about wanting to restart these conversations with the municipalities. Staff will keep council apprised as what advocacy work we need right now. I'll be attending a meeting, I believe next week, with some of the local CAOs that have been impacted by this and come up with a strategy, and we'll provide some information as needed. But that will definitely be a risk because the communication we received from 911 was the budgets that we talked about last year or the year before when this was coming up will definitely need to be increased apparently. So more to come on that in 2024. Capital projects, there has a summary attached of the status of most of the capital projects. Some are underway, some with the grant contract awards today will begin work, and updates will be provided in further quarterly reports. And the last attachment to the quarterly report would be a summary of all the grants It's great to get all these grants. It takes a lot of work to apply for these grants and then to manage the grants after they're received. So we're just trying to keep this ongoing list going just to kind of get an overall idea of how much money is coming to the district. And it's definitely very welcomed, and it's definitely helped us proceed with a lot of these projects that what might not have been possible before. So always like to keep this top of mind and highlight some of our successes, and so everyone can see what we have going on. I'll just leave that there. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Gray? Like automatically look this way.
Yeah, it's always to me. I'm fascinated with these grants. There's so, in the universe of grants, there's hundreds of them. How do you, you're using our earlier strat plan to make these decisions to some degree, or what's your thinking?
I think for the grants, it's usually a collaborative process. Once we get staff are made aware of a new grant stream, then usually there's internal emails and communications going around between departments like, hey, do we have a project eligible for this grant stream? Because usually the grant streams are time limited as well. So, you know, now with have 2 major road projects underway right now, we obviously would be very stretched to try and do another grant project in the same, you know, between 2024. That would be a stretch, as much as I'm sure Mr. Carter would love it, but it's just, you know, capacity issues. So yeah, anytime a new grant stream comes out, there's always a conversation, reflects back onto council strategic priorities, as well as items included in the financial plan. And then staff just kind of talk and determine, is this appropriate grant stream for this? Would this be a brand new initiative? And if so, maybe we don't apply for this intake, but it's something that's on our radar now for next intakes or for future budget intakes. So it's really more, I guess, yeah, definitely short-term focused and on what capital projects have been a priority of council.
And I should know this, but after 5 years, I should know this, but you do welcome recommendations from council through the CAO if we come across particular grants that we feel might be.
For sure. We're always open to new ideas. Yeah. Most of the emails probably the council gets, staff are getting, or the CAO definitely gets, now that I'm getting more of those CAO emails. We get those as well, but it's always good to just bring it to our attention. It's just managing expectations if we might not be able to take advantage of every grant opportunity.
And you do see these CRD grant dashboard reports, right? Which they're very comprehensive lists.
Correct. Yeah, CRD is a great partner for us because they've got a lot more staff and a lot bigger budget. So it's nice. They can do some nice things that we can then lean into and take some pieces that work for Souk for sure.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council receive the 2023 second quarter financial operating report for information. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any comments, Councillor McMath, Lajeunesse? Anyone else? Nope. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next one up is the Corporate Services Quarterly Report.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I could provide an overview of the written staff report included in the agenda, or I can simply answer any questions, whichever council would prefer.
I see in the report it's been really busy for FOI requests, 19 compared to 2. That creates a lot of work. So thank you for the work that you and your department are doing. When we have limited staff, it's the same person that has to do multiple things. So it's just interesting sometimes when anyway, it's one person can't do 2 things at the same time. So thanks for your attention there. Any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, so I bumped into our deputy corporate officer the other day, and you just come back from working with Victoria Bylaw on their 9 a.m. sweep of homeless encampments. And I just to get some clarity here, we continue to have a bit of an issue here in Souk at McGregor Park. In terms of Ms. Mills and Scott, they need to go as a pair. Is that correct too?
Yeah, so this is something that we are starting to learn from other municipalities that are experiencing more and more multiple risk type scenarios, not only in encampments, but in different kinds of situations in the community. So we've implemented a standard operating guidelines manual that we've started. So in the last quarter, we completed a guideline on noise complaints, which we've implemented, and it's been successful. Our next priority is going to be to explore a 2-person mandatory response to multiple risk types of calls. I did learn a lot from a very fascinating ride along with Victoria Bylaw. They have up to 12 staff members every single morning that do scheduled sweeps of different areas known to where folks experiencing homelessness reside temporarily. And they're accompanied by two RCMP officers every morning, a 6-person street cleanup team that throws out up to 5 tons of garbage every single morning as they sweep through these places. Obviously, our resources aren't that intense or our needs at this point, but the 2-person mandatory response is something I see as coming forward in the next quarter as an operating guideline, and it will have resourcing implications. We'll have to work closely with RCMP where possible, but I do think that there's a safety risk assessment portion to the work that bylaw is doing that needs to be addressed. So council will hear more about that as we roll out what that will look like.
Thank you for that. Okay, so the recommendation is that council receive the corporate services quarterly report for April to June 23 for information. Moved by Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Comments? No. Thank you for your work. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Under bylaws, we have our draft code of conduct. There is the report here, and I did speak with Ms. Mushada before she went off, because I know that she was working on this, and part of the thought was not to really adopt it, but to introduce it to council tonight. See if there's any items that arise, but I think then we'll look at bringing it back at another date. So it's just something to have in front of you to process over the summer. Sometimes when we recess, that's a good time to reflect on things. And so I'm not looking for too much other than introducing it here, because we do have a time commitment that we had to meet as well. Ms. Temple.
Just one additional thing to add to that, the code of conduct that's included in the agenda is intended, it's written as a bylaw intended to apply to council and committee members only. An option to consider is if a code of ethics geared towards staff members were to be desired by council, you could provide some direction for us to start drafting that at this point, or that could be discussed later in the fall, but just something to be aware of, that this is intended as a bylaw for council and committee members. Separate policy could be towards staff.
Okay, thank you. So questions, thoughts? Councillor Bateman?
A quick question, and the language, as you say in your report, is very similar to other codes of conduct that have been adopted. So I did look up the West Vancouver, and the language is verbatim to West Vancouver. So I'm wondering, is this rooted in a model bylaw that you've adopted?
The UBCM working group on codes of conduct has released some documents that have guided municipalities in forming this. So I imagine it has been based on best practices and documents released by those groups.
Okay. And you've also indicated that, quote, some changes have been made to make it more relative to Sooke. So I'd be very curious to see what those changes are. So if a redlined version of the bylaw could be shown. Because I note in the West Vancouver edition, they have, one of the remedies, if a councillor or committee member is way out of line, you can call in the police. That was not included in our particular bylaw. So I just that as an example, just curious. Thank you.
That is interesting. I think it's just the case of, it doesn't mean that you could not. So like right now, if a member, if I behaved really poorly and started acting out in a threatening manner to any of you, you should call 911 and not be like, well, you can't, because it's not in the code of conduct. The mayor is not contained. Right? Like you would just need to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that
Yeah.
that you would need permission to. It's just, you know, the mayor is something's going on there. So. Okay. So for now, I think for me, I would say that council consider and provide feedback. Honestly, I don't have any feedback ready at this point. So I think it's more that council receive this for information and we'll follow up in the fall. And at that time, we can determine what we would want to do further and do we want to consider something for staff? I don't know. I'd rather wait and discuss that with our CAO. Councillor McMahon?
Did we want to weave it into the strategic planning discussions as far as emerging priorities?
Well, one of our conversations has been that we, you know, have a solid talk about governance and expectations there. So it could come out of that. It's just, I think we should set a goal of trying to adopt something by the end of the year. Because we have other things that we know that we need to get this done. It is a requirement. It's not a nice to have, we have to do it. That's what the province has said. And then let's just do it and get on with it. I just don't have the capacity to process it right now.
Mhm. So how are we ensuring that this comes back?
Well, that will be in the resolution. So that,
Including the follow-up piece for,
well, I'm just reading the screen that says that council receive it for information, provide further free feedback at a future meeting in the fall of 2023. So then it's tracked, it'll come back. But at least now we can receive it, contemplate it. Unless any of you have feedback. Councillor Beddoes. Oh, okay, saw a hand come up. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing right now. So I think this is what we're doing. Okay. Council received the draft code of conduct for information and provide further feedback at a future meeting in the fall of 2023. Thank you. Okay, who would like to move that? Councillor Lajeunesse is moving it. Councillor Beddoes is seconding. Anything further? Nope. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. No new business. I just said we will contemplate that with our CAO when he hires. Like, does anyone hear anything I say? No. Apparently not. Okay. Souk Fall Fair has requested a $25 sponsorship, and it's for the Scarecrow contest that I have the privilege of judging every year. It's difficult. Am I in conflict? I don't volunteer with the Souk Fall Fair. I just have a job I have to do.
That's your criteria. I think that goes against the code.
Don't even start. You didn't hear anything. Okay, so I'm looking for a recommendation that council approve a $25 sponsorship for the Fall Fair Scarecrow contest with funds to come from the sponsorship budget. Moved by Councillor Beddoes, seconded by Councillor McMath. It's very difficult.
I'll bet it is.
It's very difficult. It is. Well, and there's always feedback because you have like excellent talent, and then you also might have someone who's 6 years old and they're in the same category. Right? So it's different, and some look like other humans in the community. So it's like, wow, that's a recycling to somebody. I don't know. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. It's a highlight for me. Okay, there's one here, and this is the one that Ms. Santowski spoke to earlier, and it's a letter that we received from the Souk News Mirror. And this is working its way through, and I totally agree with this. I'm just not sure that we advertise on Facebook. Like, have we done any, like even ads for anything? We don't. Okay. So I think, I wouldn't mind just writing back to say that we do, you know, support, because this is where even we've been challenged, like we have to do certain things have to be in printed form and all of that. And then we've, you know, put more content in there and the like, but I think it's also You know, I know I personally for election campaigns have bought Facebook ads. You know, as part of that process, but that was a decision that I made in an election, right? To reach an audience. I don't know that I will going forward, just given how things are going with social media. And I hear you when you say you need to be there, but it's a very toxic place to be. And so I don't know that I want to be there because I can find enough poison in my life to drink. Influencers. Maybe. I don't know. I have the love-hate thing with it. Counselor Bateman.
Through you to Ms. Moog, your thoughts on Facebook. The district does not have a Facebook account, but the suggestion of as it happens, when it happens, you can intervene as a district under a district banner into something on Meanwhile in Soup that's gone sideways. It's not comfortable.
There's significant resource implications to that. And it would be a long conversation, so I'll just leave it there for now. Thank you.
Put you in the system.
Okay, so I think it's the case just to receive for information. But I would also like to communicate back. So council received the correspondence titled Support for Local News for Information, and that council directs staff to advise the writer that the district of Soup does not purchase advertising from Meta platforms. Perfect. Yeah, I think it's just to communicate that back, that we agree with you. Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Is Councillor Pearson still in the meeting? He is. Okay, thank you. I think what's happening sometimes is as I'm moving like I'm kicking the cord and it's impacting my screen. So I'm trying to remind me not to do that. But he's still there. Okay, thank you for hanging in, Councillor Pearson. We're on council verbal reports. So I'll look to Councillor Pearson if you would like to go first. I'll come back to him.
Okay, hang on. There you go.
Hi, Maya Tate.
Hi.
Who is it? Tell her who you are.
Hi, Maya Tate. It's me, Austin.
Hi, Austin. It's good to see you. Thank you. Shouldn't you be in bed?
No.
Anyways, I thought you guys would get a laugh out of that. And Brooks here, they've been watching and they looked at the lot of big numbers for money. So nothing new to report from Councillor Pearson.
Well, thank you all for hanging in there, and I won't tell anyone that you're not in bed yet. Okay, that's a deal. All right. Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors for updates. Councillor Lajeunesse.
I have a brief one. The only thing to report is that I attended the CRD Water Commission meeting last week, and they have a lot of upgrade projects happening. Mostly there are a few in Langford and in Sydney. The treatment plant on Souk River Road is getting some additional treatments installed. They've got portable labs that they've purchased and will be dispatching those throughout the region so they can do real-time testing of the water. The Souk Lake is right on cue as it's dropped between 30 and 40 millimeters only, even with the drought level 5 that we're experiencing. And so they're not in a hurry to introduce any additional watering restrictions at this time. And that's about it.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. Other councillors?
Okay, so I was at the Stick yesterday for the end of one chapter, but it turns out it's the opening of another one. And Wendy O'Connor, who was with us earlier, she's on the Soup Community Investment Cooperative, and they've struck a deal with Mr. Evans, and the Stick will be reborn as Cafe Vizino. Vizino being our old, as you all know, I don't have to tell anyone in this room. You all know. And so that's exciting. That's a community effort, grassroots, and they came up with $100,000 and more is needed. So you can visit that website and contribute or donate or become an investor. I attended the CRD Environmental Services meeting where the subject was again biosolids at great length. And that was fascinating. And then the Souk Shelter Society's annual general meeting is this coming Thursday at the Souk Library. Yeah, I have an appointment with Souk Auto. That's about it.
Thank you. Other updates? Nope. Okay, so I have a few. The Horseshoe Society is hosting a tournament this Saturday, so I will be there at 8:30 to attempt to throw the first shoe. I'll be going to the Navy Admiral's Garden tour in August. I want to thank the Lions Club for sponsoring swim lessons, as the Sea Park has been looking to grow the complement of instructors and lifeguards. It left many families scrambling to get the necessary lessons. The Lions stepped up and provided the lessons to, I think, pretty much every grade 2 or 3 child in the community. And what that means for some kids, and I'm speaking of mine, is because now that he has a certain level, he can do things, and that builds confidence. He doesn't have to wear a life jacket. He can, and that's a big deal for young people that are trying to find their way. So the confidence and esteem building that comes with that, to be that I can jump in the deep end without a life jacket and go without one. It's a big deal for everyone, but for young humans. So thank you for that work, because it made a big difference. Swim lessons do open up for on August the 1st. So I think we'll all be madly there early trying to get into the next set, but having that base in place is a big deal. The CRD board did not finish all items. There is a special board meeting now in August to finish all remaining items on the agenda. So I will be there for that. Thank you for going to the Environment Committee. I had to get into town to get dental surgery done. That wasn't fun, but it's healing well, so that's good news. The market pop-ups are great. Thank you to the staff for what you're doing there. You receive, I did one at the night market, so it provides, you can do some quick answers to questions, inform residents about things that are happening or where they're at, or even have the budget piece go. So it's an opportunity to connect on many things, not just the budget and what you want to do, but also explaining some things. And so it was an interesting conversation where someone said, no, I don't need to put any more into staff, but I need to improve and speed up building permit time. And I said, okay, but without the staff, like, do you support artificial intelligence? Is that, no, I don't want to do that. Well, one can't happen without the other. So then he actually put some stickers under the staff capacity, because what are you going to do there without the humans? And so it was a great opportunity to engage there. This Friday at 10:30, the province wants to do a celebratory event to recognize the completion of the corridor project. So I'll be heading over to the 17-mile. I think it's for 10 o'clock, actually. I should double check that. Make sure I'm on time. I have to MC the event. Anyway, it's this Friday, and I'll be there for that. Minister, I think so. It's a public event. They'll probably send out something. Minister Fleming will be there, as well as our new MLA. I'll just see if I actually know what time it is. So one day I put it in as all day. I think it's 10. I'll have to get back to you. I don't remember. Let's see here. The Sauk are hosting a craft sale on July the 30th. And then I'm also sort of putting my attention to UBCM advocacy work for the fall, so that we're not scrambling. But procrastination is my friend. So we'll see what happens there. Good thing I have some good staff to help me get it done ahead of time. Yeah, and I've been watching The Amazing Race and curious that I recognize some things. So I think you should tune in tomorrow at 9, because I saw a picture. It kind of looked like our boardwalk, and people trying to swim Yeah, with something, and that's because I watched it last week, and they show coming next, right? They always give the scenes. So that's what I saw, and I thought, okay, well, that's curious. They also showed Craigdarroch Castle that I recognized, and they were coming, and I can't even remember where they were, from Whistler, I believe. Pardon me? Just have to tune in 9 o'clock on CTV, and you can also download the app if you don't have cable and watch it that way too. So we'll see what happens there. I'm also noticing that there are some young juvenile bears wandering about, particularly on Thursday as it's garbage day, Monday being recycling day. And I think it's just a tough time right now for bears to find food. The berries aren't ripe yet. Fishing is not that great and they're hungry. So I think it's just important, and supporting the work of Wildwise with what they're doing. And I sometimes wonder if it's because there's so many humans down by the river, it's their inability to fish when there's a lot of people there. So the bears can smell stronger than a nose. And yeah, and I missed it by like seconds today. It was right behind me apparently, but okay. So I'll leave it at that. So thank you, everyone. And I'll see if I can find that date, that time before the end of today.
It is at 10 o'clock.
It is 10 o'clock. How about that? 10 o'clock at the 17 mile. And other than that, that is it. More work to come, but thank you for stepping in on those meetings. So our next item is item number 14, and this is a release of closed meeting agenda items. So we do have one to report out. I'm just going to find it here. Okay. So this is a rise in report, and it would be that council authorized Mayor Tate to enter into an employment agreement or employment contract with Jeremy Denegar, and that council appoint Jeremy Denegar as Chief Administrative Officer for the District of Sooke effective September 5th, 2023. So I'm very excited to welcome Mr. Denegar to the District of Sooke. And I also want to thank Ms. Gray for your outstanding work in carrying us through all of this. Your appointment is in place until the end of the year, because I think it's going to take a while just for you to transfer everything that you've learned and had to deal with. But thank you for rising to the occasion and juggling all the different folios, especially when there's been intense pressure from the community. We're growing, and the resourcing issues that we don't have. So also for all the staff here for supporting Ms. Gray and one another through all of this. And so I hope that as this is our final meeting for the summer, and then the next meeting we'll be able to have our new CAO presence, that everyone has a good break and comes back. I'm actually for the first time taking time off, so I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to be doing a staycation, because that doesn't happen. It just fills up with work. So heading to Alberta, and then some serious downtime, and I just turn off the phone. It's fine. You just turn it off, and it's great. They seem to call other people and problems get resolved. So it works. I don't have to have it on all the time. All right. So on that clever note, motion to adjourn, please. Oh, I know you so want to do this. I'm almost tempted to go to someone else, but I'll give it to Councillor McMath, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Pearson, for zooming in. You take good care. Enjoy your vacation with the grandkids.
Thank you. Thank you for entertaining me. Thank you.